because I put in the chat. I said, look, Coyle is too busy getting laid to be on time for a live stream, and that's the truth of it, bro.
It's fucking first world problems, man. Come on.
What the hell? Wait, what did I do? All right, I'm making assets. All right, you ready? Okay, we're gonna start. We're gonna start the show now. I guess. Why did I click the 30-second countdown? Like, am I completely retarded? I'm losing it. All right.
Yeah.
Now we're starting this.
Okay.
Sense great fear in you, Skywalker. You have hate, you have anger, but you don't use them.
Tells me he can get me out of this mess, but he's pretty sure you're fucked.
And welcome to a special Sage of the Savage. Thank you guys so much for being here, and hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I had a wonderful Yule. I had a great Yule. Time with some loved ones. Yeah.
We've been threatening to do this show for a long time, you guys. Steven and I initially met because of Star Wars in a weird way. Now, I don't know about you, Steven, but like back in 2015, before we knew what Disney was going to do, the hype was real, you know, and I remember even like when the Phantom Menace first came out, the hype was real. And personally, I started going on YouTube and boning up on my Star Wars lore. I found Star Wars Theory. I found the Stupendous Wave, a couple of other channels like that. And then, we got what we got. And then the Menace was born. That's where I met you proper.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. That's where Trans Fat was born.
Yep.
God, where The Rogue 4, Rogue
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Matter of fact, I'm going to put on the camera real fast. Wearing my drunk 3PO.
Look at
Got
you
my
selling
merch.
out. No,
Yep.
Damn right. Damn right,
Not
man.
a lot
Hail
of
Jay.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that. I've known Drunk 3PO just about as long as I've known you. Like we were all thrown together into a group, and
He's still trans
you know,
fat.
trans fat.
Yeah. It's where we all started. I remember when Jay was under 100 subs, man. He was trying to give us all hints. He was trying to he always had a vision. I got to give it to Jay. He always had a vision on what he wanted to do and where he was going. And when Griggs took him under his wing, like he just soared. You know, he listened to everything that he had to say. And then when Nerdrotic found Ryan Cannell, and then he kind of came into G&G, and like those are all good dudes. Like I've seen them many times at events and love the hell out of them. Kind of modeled Rogue Entertainment after what G&G was doing. Not necessarily wanting to be them, but like modeling it after that. That like Midnight's Edge. World-class bullshitters. God, so many good people out there. Like the author Stephen Walton character, online character was originally part Doomcock and Jesse Mildstone. Because I was watching those guys a lot.
Yeah. We had quite a few interactions in the Doomcock chats when he first started going. I remember his very first stream. He was talking about Star Trek, So
he was doing Star Trek. So was Mecca when she was still, cool.
Yeah.
And she was was friends with her. I
was too.
I liked all the Star Trek people.
I did too. It's just a shame that instead of coming together and celebrating these things, like we have to bemoan the current state of affairs. We were kind of talking about Palpatine as a narcissist, and it's funny because
is a psychopath.
Oh, he is, man, and we're definitely going to get into that because especially as when we got the first 3 episodes and we saw that obviously it's Darth Vader's story, but it's also the story about how Palpatine played both sides and wound up on top. And in my own headcanon, I don't count the Disney stuff. When he got thrown down the reactor shaft, that's it. That's the end of Star Wars. There's no secret warp zone down there. There's none of that shit.
He didn't jump down to Mario Brothers.
I know. Like every time I see that now, I hear that pipe sound.
Right? If they had done it right, I mean, we'll do a show. We'll do a part 7. We'll do a show like after all 6 and talk about that because there were aspects that could have been used from Clone Wars and Rebels that they could have brought in and done something. But I'm a fan of Ahsoka. I'm a fan of those some of Filoni's characters. So and also absolutely. Like in the intro, I played that the one clip from the one Mandalorian that I really liked, where we got Luke Skywalker on screen
the whole
in Disney Star Wars, which is the best
killing
scene.
The fuck out of robots, yeah.
Aside from Rogue One, is the best scene in Disney.
It is. Well, it was meaningful and impactful, and you can tell that Filoni and Favreau cared about us, the fans, and it's really just like Kathleen Kennedy and all those guys that want to either change or disavow what George Lucas has done, and that's terrible because we've seen how absent George Lucas, Star Wars is just a shell of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a future because it's like Phantom Menace 1, like the ones before us, the original TFM. Which 1999, 2000. Yes. They had a lot to do. They obviously had a lot to do with with Lucas kind of giving up, I think, after the sequel trilogy.
Well, and same thing, like Jake Lloyd was bullied. He's still kind of like emotionally fucked over because of all that stuff. But really, the first 3 episodes, and I hate that people are going to try to do this with Disney, but it's not the same at all. George Lucas was so ahead of the curve with all that stuff. Like he had all this, I mean, like the first 3 the old movies, the old movies. He did kind of wing it on the first one, but he brought it together and had a vision. But he always had this backstory. He always said, like, yeah, I wrote down a couple of paragraphs about where all these people came from, and I never really intended to make it into a movie. But when I did, he had a way of doing it. And especially now that the Clone Wars TV series is out there, we have 20, 30 years of just continuous content that we can map out, and it's just as real as like Tolkien's kind of thing. He kind of did the same thing. George R.R. Martin tried to do it, but he fucking stopped for some reason. But it's a creator investing in his creation and knowing the overall shape and vision, which is why Disney so fantastically failed when they tried to do it, because they had no vision. They were just member bearers, right?
The reason that Disney had no vision was because they were more concerned with ideology and pressing agenda than they were, creating a good story, which was a loss, because they had I think there was a lot of good characters in The Force Awakens that could have been expanded upon. What they really missed out on, which is the problem. I don't want to get too much into it, but
sure,
the problem with the progressive Hollywood mentality is to disrespect what came before you, disrespect your elders, disrespect what built it. So we didn't get the legends on screen. We should have gotten Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, we should all of them. And Cobra Kai is another great example. That's why I write about it in Phantom Menace Volume 1. Very example of how to appease legacy fans and introduce new characters, because it was so easy for me to like the newer, the new kids, the up and comers.
Sure.
Because they did right by Johnny. They did right by.
We got a different perspective of Daniel too. Yeah.
Daniel's the bully. They did the Daniel's the bully storyline, which was great.
That was great.
But before we get too far into this, I just want to say thank you guys so much for being here. Please smash the like, share out the link. We are going to be doing this from a kind of a different perspective, a Dragonstorm perspective. You guys are going to get some author Stephen Walton, because I love Star Wars. And it's kind of where I started on YouTube, was talking about Star Wars. So this is author Stephen Walton time on Lodonis Dragonstorm. But I'm also bringing the concept of what people call the empath versus narcissist kind of dynamic. Because if you look at from what I've learned and from how I've come up in the last few years, the Jedi are like warrior empaths, and the Sith are narcissists and psychopaths. And so throughout this story, what I see looking back on it, because as we grow, we look back at our favorite films or stories or books, through our learning experience, as adults. And we kind of look back and we see characters or events differently. Like a character that you might have not sympathized with in the past, 10 years later, because of something you've been through, you may understand it or sympathize with that, with a villain or with a hero. And so when I look at Anakin Skywalker, I look at this kid who had daddy and mommy issues, who had abandonment issues, who was taken from his life and was like thrust into being a Jedi, being brought up as a Jedi, complete away from his home in Tatooine. And also at the same time with a father figure, because he was looking for those father figures in Obi-Wan, for Qui-Gon and Palpatine. Palpatine's a psychopath. The power of a psychopath to use dark psychology to employ that upon you and to subtly set triggers into your mind and mold you in a certain way and mold your reactions and play on your fears is what he did to Anakin. And Anakin became like a malignant narcissist. He became Darth Vader. But like a true psychopath does, by the time you get Anakin to the point of Vader, robotic Vader, after the fight on Mustafar, he's truly a narcissist, because he can never be healed. He can never truly come together and be fixed. And so this is a journey I'm looking forward to discussing with Coyle and getting his views on.
Well, I always tell people I like Star Wars more than most people do, because they're like, oh yeah, I like Luke Skywalker and blah blah blah, and I was like, yeah, but did you know that he actually went and fought a clone of himself? You know, that kind of shit. So,
yeah, look, the books. I miss the books.
Yeah. Well, and even in preparation for the stream, I told Walton that he had to go and listen to the Plagueis novel, because there's a lot in there, and truthfully, that could really be this first episode, but it interweaves, you know.
It's funny that you bring that up, Coyle, because I had actually prepared for you for that, because I think that Plagueis is the perfect place to start here. And for those who don't know, Darth Plagueis was the teacher.
He was a Dark Lord of the Sith. So powerful and wise that he could even
take it away, bro. You know it. Take it away.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
No, but I mean, I did listen to the audiobook. Thank you for suggesting that. And why don't you explain Darth Plagueis and what led to? Yep,
well, so number one, Darth Plagueis is probably, if not the best, up there with the best of Star Wars books. If you're at all into reading, you would not be remiss to avoid this one. The other books that I think the only other books that I think that could hold a candle to Darth Plagueis is probably the Darth Bane trilogy. So, for most casual people, if like all you've seen is the movies, Darth Plagueis is mentioned in Revenge of the Sith at the opera scene as a way to lure Anakin further into the dark side, because we all know Anakin's having nightmares about Padme dying. So he's like, yeah, there's a Sith Lord who figured this out. And from that, from that little, 5 minutes or whatever it was, this novel was born. It was written by James Luceno, and we follow Plagueis as he is a Sith apprentice. We see him kill his master, and then we see him find a young Palpatine. And Palpatine is probably like 16 or 17 when Plagueis first found him in this novel. And Palpatine had Force abilities, but he was able to disguise his presence in the Force even as a young man. He has daddy issues. His dad said stuff like, "I should have killed you when you were a baby," stuff like that. So Palpatine, Plagueis actually, as Palpatine's test to become a Sith, he says, "I need you to kill your family. You need to have no ties. You need to, be on your own." So Palpatine gets on a starship and kills his family with the Force. His father, his mother, and his siblings. So he's the only Palpatine left. Plagueis was a little more scientific. He wasn't so much into training with lightsabers and all that kind of stuff. He was actually working with the midichlorians themselves. And I know some people find midichlorians a dubious topic, but George made it up. It's there. It's a fucking fact. Get over it. What Plagueis was able to do was he was able to basically prolong death, or like cause death and then cause the body to reanimate itself. There is a real interesting story about his first Sith master. So he either cloned him or did some sort of thing where he wound up with a clone of his first master, and he was actually considering ditching Palpatine and then using this one to complete the Rule of Two stuff, because the Sith, they're always trying to kill each other. They're always trying to scheme and scam and all that kind of stuff. At one point, Plagueis received an injury to his face, and he required a mask and a vocabulator. And it's interesting that there's a parallel here with Vader, because he ends up sounding a little bit more mechanical. But the whole time, Palpatine was putting plans into motion, and then kind of allowing Plagueis to believe that it was his idea. So when Palpatine is ready to kill him, it's a very dark scene. Like, basically, he's about to be elected chancellor, so he stays up all night with Plagueis and gets him drunk. And Plagueis did this thing where he just never slept. He was always awake. He could use the Force to regenerate himself, rejuvenate himself. Palpatine read this boring speech over and over and over again until Plagueis passed out, and then killed the fuck out of him with some Force lightning. Which is why it's also, I mean, there's a lot more to the book than that, but that's essentially, you know, they go over finding Maul and what his role in the Sith was or actually was, that kind of thing. But when you get somebody like Leslie Headland, just throwing Plagueis into a random fucking show, it's infuriating because you know she didn't read that fucking book. She probably had somebody, she probably had somebody describe to her what Plagueis looked like, and he's just like, what, creepy in a cave, like.
I know. We're not. No, let's not go to Disney Star Wars.
No.
We're gonna put that aside. No,
yes,
it's not real. Disney Star
that
Wars is
really
not real
happen,
Star Wars.
guys.
No, it didn't happen. A couple things in the chat. First off, Papa Cotton did answer it, but Mike Does was asking, did Lucas write all of the novels, Coil?
No, and actually, that actually occurred prior to the Disney sale. So Lucas would have had to approve it, but he's not sitting there writing the novel. They probably just do a pitch meeting, like, hey, you know, Darth Plagueis, let's do a book about that. And he's like, all right, well, just let me put eyeballs on it before you publish it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mike does. It's called the Expanded Universe. There was an expanded universe of novels that was written. There's actually two different timelines. One in the 80s, and then it was kind of scrapped in the early 90s, and then another expanded universe was written, which caused a bit of a scuffle back then, just as the original Fandom Menace when the Phantom Menace came out, who didn't like the tone that Lucas had taken with the prequels. And then after the sale to Disney, they completely scrapped the expanded universe, which was the one thing that had kept Star Wars fans engaged, you know, and really heavily engaged for a long time throughout whatever pocket of the Star Wars fandom you were involved with. And it's a shame because the people that were at Disney Lucasfilm, actually, that's when they began attacking fans, and they began calling them militant and shitty for putting up billboards trying to save the expanded universe. So the division with the OG Star Wars fandom, which actually is a couple sectors of fandom, and the Disney Lucasfilm era started around what, 2013, 14? And it all had to do with a kind of a militant attitude. It was actually the people working at the creative group at Disney Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy that were militant and shitty.
They're projecting,
they were projecting. They're all narcissists. Kathleen Kennedy's a narcissist. They were attacking the fandom and trying to destroy something that they loved. But that's that. We'll do that. We'll do like a part 7, and we'll talk about all that.
Sure. I mean, I could talk about Star Wars all day, dude.
All day long. Real quick, I just want to say hail to Parrothead out in the chat. What's going on, dude? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. CJH is in the chat. Good to see you, Papa Cotton. If we're talking episode 1, I just need to say something. Jar Binks is arguably the most pivotal character in the entire saga.
You know what? He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Jar Jar is the one that recommended that Palpatine be given emergency powers. So
Jar Jar is an example of an innocent person who leads with his heart and is trusting being manipulated by a psychopath. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. Palpatine's a psychopath, and he would just manipulate. That's what he did. He was a master manipulator. You know, you can't take anything away from Palpatine. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I agree with Papa Cotton, and I would have loved to have seen the Darth Jar Jar story happen. That fan theory was wonderful.
Some really good Star Wars parody accounts that kind of go into that. Star Wars Theory is always going to be my #1 Star Wars channel. I love the fuck out of that guy. There's another one called like Skywalker Stories or something where they're using AI to. I posted one of those on my X the other day, and it's just what if stories, like what if Luke could talk to Darth Revan, or what if Darth Vader could talk to Darth Malak? You know, just crazy stuff. Really good stuff though. Love it.
There's a lot of good A lot of good out there that never really got used.
Well, and
And it's
the fact that there are people sitting around in their living rooms and basements making better Star Wars than Disney. You know, hire some of those people. Jeez, give Star Wars theory writer room. You know,
if they ran with, look, I will always say Rogue One is a legit film. I love Rogue One.
Yeah.
I think it's a legit film. And that is the way that you present like a female lead without making all the male characters morons and beating them with hypergamy. And you know what I mean? And so even if it is a Kathleen Kennedy projection, I think it's a really good. I think it's a solid film. I like Rogue One a lot.
And again, that's before we realized 100% what we were going to get out of Disney. But yeah,
and like I said, I love Daisy Ridley. I love Daisy Ridley. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my boo. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I don't like what they did with the characters. But
I'd give it
real quick. Fallon reacts. What's up, Fallon? Good to see you. Hail the old Fandom Collective. Gotta love that rule too. Good to see you, sweetheart. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you guys. Smash that like button. Share out the link. Let's see. Lacey's in the chat. What's up, baby girl? Good to see you. Merry Krampus. Merry Krampus, everyone.
There you go.
Yeah, she's a little dark, my little pagan lass there. Let's see. Barking Spiders in the chat. Good to see you. Has anyone seen the Robot Chicken Star Wars trilogy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that shit.
Stormtrooper.
No, I think my favorite one though is where like Palpatine gets a phone call and it's Darth Vader and he's like, "Oh, Darth Vader, he's crying," you know, and they're laughing at him, and then right before they hang up, he goes, "I love you too."
I love you too. Yeah. So bad.
So good.
It's so good.
So good.
Oh, lovely Sherry's in the chat. What's up, Sherry? Good to see you, sweetheart.
Hey, Sherry.
Thank you so much for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what is going on? Let me see. I don't want to miss anybody else before we go on. All right. Okay, so what the fuck is an aluminum falcon? He was so pissed.
I love that shit.
Dude, Robot Chicken kept it going, man. Okay, so we started off talking about Plagueis. And so when one more question, because I only listened to the novel once. You're very well versed in it. So, what is the founding principles? What is the thought of Palpatine killing Plagueis in order to begin executing his plan to bringing about a new Sith order? Like what?
So here's the weird thing too, is because it seems like every rule of two Sith, and especially as the grand plan is coming together, they start taking what Darth Bane did, which worked for 1,000 generations or whatever, and start thinking that, well, okay, now that I'm the apex, that old way of thinking is no longer valid. Plagueis had that delusion too. So initially, he was going to have Palpatine be the human face of the Emperor, but they were in Plagueis is thinking they were going to both co-chancellor, except Plagueis would do it from the shadows. He was a big banking clan. So the race that Plagueis came from was called the Muns. And we saw one of them in episode 2 when they were sitting around the table talking to Count Dooku about the Death Star and all that kind of shit.
The separatists, yeah.
Yeah. We of the banking clan, blah, 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 blah. Same species, except Plagueis was force sensitive, obviously. He was a Dark Lord of the Sith. And Palpatine allowed him to think that up until the point where he was going to murder him, because he needed Plagueis's influence, his money, all of that stuff to get elected chancellor. But true, when the Sith apprentice realizes that the master is no longer necessary, at that point, that's when they should offer a duel. There's some people who think that Palpatine was kind of cowardly for not openly challenging his master and just waiting for him to go to sleep. But in the book, the real interesting thing is that at first Plagueis was really pissed off, but then he started thinking of it as an opportunity to see if he really had mastery over his own midichlorians. And ultimately he did not. because he died. Yeah. Palpatine. So, well, Darth Sidious. You think about the word insidious. What does that mean? And fucking Palpatine is that down to a T. He has absolutely no redeeming qualities. You don't feel sorry for the guy, even if you understand the that he made power more important to him than, he never had a wife that we knew of. Again, we're not talking about Disney. Fuck all that. And I I always had this joke. I'm sure it's not true, but I think part of the reason why he was so mad at Darth Vader was because he burned his dick.
You remember? Listen, in world classes chat. You remember that account? That was what is it? It was Anakin's
Darth
burning
Vader's,
phallus.
Yeah, charred phallus. Yeah,
phallus,
dude.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to that guy.
That chat.
Man.
Soul says Palpatine was cunning when he took out his master. Assassination is part of the Sith.
Well, it is. If you read the Darth Bane trilogy, though, the way that Darth Bane envisioned it was that it would be a formal challenge, and it was like,
right,
we all know what's at stake. I think you're old and fucked up, so pony up. Let's do this. If you haven't read it, yeah, but
Palpatine sabotaged. It wasn't a one-on-one conflict, and I think that I'd actually read, I forget where it was, or I listened to kind of an excerpt of, I don't know if it's canon or not, but it was Palpatine or Darth Sidious, and he was channeling to speak to the ghost of his former master. And one of the banter between the two was, him being told, he was like, "You didn't challenge me. You're a coward."
Yeah,
Sidious. Yeah. You had to trap me. You had to trick me in order to kill me.
Absolutely.
Because I think Plagueis, being what he was, did actually expect to be killed by his student, but in a one-on-one challenge, in a duel, which never happened. So I think that. Does that add to Soul Assassin thinks that adds to his cunning? But what do you think of that?
To me, it seemed that Palpatine wasn't certain that he could defeat him in one-on-one combat, so he tried to take every advantage that he could. Right. And especially if because Plagueis was massively drunk, he drank like 10 bottles of wine or something over the course of an evening. If he was awake and aware and in full capabilities, he probably could have done some fuckery with Palpatine's midi-chlorians. And there is a scene in the book where somebody makes an attempt on Plagueis's life, and the thing is, before Darth Maul showed up on Tatooine, nobody had any idea that the Sith were even still alive or functioning in some capacity. So he went to the guy's bedchamber at night, and he used his power over the guy's midi-chlorians to basically kill him. And he didn't even have to touch him. So I would think it would have been something kind of like that if, unless there was some sort of like ritualistic way of doing it, but the Sith don't work that way. They're going to take whatever path to power that they can. Remember, Yoda said that, the quick and easy path. Right. Take the quick and easy path, you'll become an agent of evil.
And like everything, like CJ just said, Palpatine is the ultimate narcissistic psychopath. Absolutely. He's the ultimate psychopath. And the way that he took out his master, learned everything that he could from him, and got to a point where he was ready to overthrow. He was ready to murder him and take position as like the Sith of the galaxy. That's absolutely. I think everything Coyle just said attributes to that. He knew that he couldn't, or he doubted that he could defeat. He could defeat his master one-on-one. So he set a trap and then took him out as soon as he had the advantage. And I think that shows. I mean, like Soul has said, he was cunning. I mean, there's no there's no way to discredit that. Absolutely, he was cunning.
Well, it's definitely in keeping with his character as well.
And keeping with his character, right. But Palpatine's ability from the beginning to put on a false front, a false face. All right, that his Sith persona, his narcissistic shell, which was the Palpatine aspect of him, whereas his true self is the psychopath, Darth Sidious.
Right.
His ability to manipulate, to show that fakeness to everyone else was something that created what did Yoda say? He blinded the Jedi. You know, it blinded basically like on Earth, what we would consider empaths or psychics, light workers. This guy, this psychopath, blinded all of the light workers, all of the empaths, all the psychics in a shroud, and was able to maneuver and manipulate from the very beginning, which is what we're gonna get into here soon. And that's an interesting point. They talk about that in the Plagueis book, where the two of them pushed the influence of the dark side, so that the will of the Force was tipped more towards the dark side. And then the other really important thing that the novel makes clear is that Plagueis was experimenting with the midi-chlorians, trying to create life. They wanted to. There's a legend in Sith lore called the Sithari that's like supposed to be like Jesus Sith kind of thing, and the Force said no. Not only no to you, but I'm going to create a light side being because you dared to fuck with this. See, the Force, the Sith tell themselves that they can bend the Force to their will, but the Force has a will of its own. The dark side will work with you, but it will corrupt your being as you work with it. And that's the whole seduction thing, because you think that you can control its vast power, but it ends up controlling you. And not only that, but it made Anakin the chosen one. You know, so there was this joke or this like thing, like a deleted scene where Palpatine's like, you know, we use the Force to create life, and then the Force responded with you, so in a way I am your father. But they ended up cutting that. Plagueis actually so in the book, obviously the events are overlapping with Phantom Menace episode 1, right? In the book, when he sees Anakin get off the starship with Qui-Gon and Padme and R2 and all that, and they're sitting there talking on the pad, in the book, Plagueis is back there kind of with binoculars, like scoping, like, who is this kid? You know, this is the one that I inadvertently created by messing with the Force. So what is it? And as he's looking at Anakin, he gets this Force vision of Vader, and it scares the piss out of him, dude. So you can't just make the Force do shit that you want it to do. There's always going to be a consequence, and Darth Vader was that consequence. Yeah. Oh, Soul Assassin's dropping some freaking gems out here. Thank you very much for being here, guys. Please remember to smash that like button, subscribe if it's your first time here, and share out the link. We're going to be having these discussions. I think we're going to be doing them for the next several weeks. We're going to be covering all of the original 6 Star Wars, starting out of sequence, which is weird, with the prequels, and then going into the original trilogy.
Yes.
In comparison of what narcissists, cluster B personality disorder, psychopaths, light workers, empaths, and magic. The Force is magic, and we're both spiritual. Yes. So we're looking at this energetically too. Soul Assassin says, after the Sith Wars, the Jedi got watered down by politics, tradition, and fighting, and the old enemy, while the Sith evolved. And this is the thing. Yeah. And so I'd like to touch on this because this is actually really good, and it's going to lead us into the beginning of our coverage of the Phantom Menace. So when you have justice or law, light powers, and total control, which is something we all kind of strive for, right? Truth, justice. When you do that, it does create imbalance. Like, the imbalance in the universe was initially created by the lack of shadow, the lack of Sith, the lack of negative force. Without negativity, without chaos, there can be no growth. Chaos is evolution. I try to press this a lot when I'm talking to in the later, depending on who I'm coaching, if they're in the later stages of healing from narcissistic abuse, I tell them to give value to the experience, because that person, that chaotic, dark, manipulative person that came into your life, forces you to evolve. If you do not evolve from that situation, you do not learn and grow, then you do not gain strength. You need chaos. You need to have a balance of light and dark. The balance of the Force, which is kind of the theme, I think, of, if you look at the 6 films as a whole, has to do with that. When you have light and control, things get stagnant. All right. When you have nothing but justice, things get stagnant. I go back to another one of my favorite sci-fis, Babylon 5.
Yes.
Which, with the shadows, the shadows would come back every so often and create chaos, and it would force evolution. It was a culling, and as I'm not, this is just a natural part of life and a natural part of evolution, in my opinion. So, Soul Assassin, great point, brother. Is there anything you'd like to add to or comment on that quote?
Well, so in Legends, back when the Sith were numerous, they were actually a group of dark Jedi that believed that the Jedi should examine all aspects of the Force and not just their dogmatic view of the light side, right? So the Jedi were like, no, we're all about the light side, and if you guys want to do dark side shit, get off my planet, kind of thing. So they went to a planet, and actually there was a race of beings called Sith, and they were in tune with the dark side, but they weren't obviously as near as powerful as the Jedi. So the dark Jedi conquered the race of Sith, and that's where the whole thing Sith Lord came from. So already we have the Jedi creating the Sith by their inability to look at the Force as a whole. And then years later, around the Darth Bane era, the Sith were already starting to kill each other, but Darth Bane used it as an opportunity to eradicate the Sith altogether, except for him and his apprentice Zana, right? And then in the absence of the Sith, the Jedi kind of grew like fat and lazy, if you want to call it that. They had no enemy really to fight over or with. They'd go around the galaxy and do their little, Jedi police thing whenever it was necessary. But what ended up happening, there's a pretty good Dooku novel where he talks about this too, but the Jedi ceased to become agents of the light side of the Force and actually became a way of the Senate enforcing its will on the galaxy, whether it was correct or not correct. The Jedi were stewards of the Senate, and that's part of what pissed off Qui-Gon Jinn so much. Qui-Gon started to perceive that kind of stuff, but it was really his death that sent Dooku down the dark side. There's Tales of the Jedi. Have you seen that one too, Steven?
I have not.
Okay.
I should.
Half of it's about Ahsoka and half of it's about Dooku, but it's a Dave Filoni thing. It's animated like the Clone Wars.
Oh, then I definitely need to see that. Okay, I missed that.
Yeah, you would love that one. But all this stuff kind of goes together. So basically, Jedi complacency and the Jedi misinterpreting their role within the Force as a whole is what led to Order 66. The Jedi created Darth Vader. The Jedi created Darth Tyrannus. The Jedi were working for a Sith Lord for 2 decades and didn't even fucking know it. And they talk about this in the Plagueis novel too. Like I was saying, Sidious came up with all this shit, but he allowed Plagueis to think that it was his idea. But they realized that if they could start a war and operate both sides, then you can get the Jedi to do un-Jedi-like things in the name of security. And then that's also going to piss off the light side of the Force, because Jedis weren't supposed to be war generals. They were supposed to be, I can protect you, but I can't fight a war for you, Your Highness. We're stewards of the peace.
Yeah, and that's where the manipulation comes in. So when you are dealing with a really good manipulator, someone who can employ dark psychology, 40 laws of power, those types of things, then you have someone who can get their opposition, people who to do things that are not in alignment with their character, by gaslighting them, and creating the conditions necessary in order to get them to enact in ways they normally would not. And one of the ways that that manipulators, narcissistic people, psychopaths, sociopaths, the way that they can condition others is by creating circumstance, playing behind the scenes. These are people who are not up the gut. They're not direct. There's not direct confrontation. You're dealing with a narcissist. You're dealing with the lies and the people they've talked to and bullshitted to you about, and the smear campaigns and the flying monkeys and all those, all the rumor mills. You know what I mean? The trash talking lunch tables that create the conditions in order to make a person look or act out of character due to pressures hitting them from unsuspecting sides, which is where kind of we start in the beginning of the Phantom Menace. All right, so there is a blockade around a peaceful planet that has, and it's Palpatine's planet. So of course he has the inside track there. He understands he understands those people. Those are his people, and so that is where the grand manipulation begins. By bringing in these two Jedi light workers, these two empaths who come in to try and solve a problem that is unsolvable. There's literally a problem created for which there is no solution. Anyone who's been in a relationship with a narcissist knows this. Create a problem which there is no solution to get everybody stirred up and get everybody crazy. And so that's kind of where the manipulation begins with Palpatine. Anything you'd like to add, my brother?
Well, I will, but I actually really want to commend you for what you said, and this whole narc abuse. Your understanding of it puts you in a unique way to interpret these movies. That they're not just. I mean, this is like the Iliad or something. This is like the great modern story of our time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I put George Lucas in the same category as Tolkien because he fucking belongs there. And even if it was a comic book or like a novel or something, it would still be as compelling. But the fact that it's a visual story, you feel the feelings, you go through it, and then even though it took 10 or 15 years for the rest of reality to catch up with him, George Lucas is a master at all this stuff. There's so many levels that you can take this in from. But more to the point, so yes, Palpatine did choose the blockade for a very good reason, because he knew he could start a war because of it, and even if that didn't happen, he could have still taken out the Queen. Put himself more into a more of a favorable
position. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Listen, it's one thing that I've learned. I don't advertise all this all that much, but like maneuvering, right? I don't manipulate, I maneuver. It's something that I've kind of taken to me. I'll maneuver around a situation. I don't need to manipulate anyone to do that. But when I do something, it's for more than one reason. And everyone should adopt this philosophy. When you decide to take an action, there should be more than one outcome you're looking at. And a great, a good tactician or manipulator, that is how they approach a situation. I'm glad you said that, bro, because you're right. There was more than one possible outcome that Palpatine could have taken more power or taken more of an advantage through. This blockade.
Well, even if he lost, he would have won. That's the point.
Right.
And even in episode 2, Yoda kind of echoes that sentiment, because one of the other Jedi was like, if those clones hadn't shown up, it wouldn't have been a victory. And Yoda's like, what victory? The Clone Wars have already started. This is bad. This is not what we wanted at all. But the Sith created the clones, and the Jedi took them. So, like I'm saying, they're working for a Sith Lord this whole fucking time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't even know.
Real quick, while I'm looking for something else, Mike Doug's asked Coyle, "What's the origins of the lightsaber?" Tell the evolution of the lightsaber from the Viking blade.
Well, in real life, George Lucas just wanted to have a version of Excalibur for Luke to hold, and since it was, a space thing, it's like, well, why not make it a light sword, a lightsaber? The original lightsaber was a handle for a camera that they used on screen, but in in canon, the Jedi always had a version, like they use like swords long time ago, but when they figured out how to use the crystals and all that kind of shit, it was actually kind of like a proton pack where they had like a little backpack or a battery thing that hooked onto their belt, and there was a cable that came out of it. Until they figured out the power cell, you know, like the one that Qui-Gon gave to Anakin. He's like, here, this is from a lightsaber. Use this to power your pod racer. Then it became self-contained. From what I understand in canon, the Jedi every couple of years do have to recharge their battery, but it, you know, it's that badass. It could just last. And come on, see, if one piece of sci-fi technology existed, I would either want it to be a lightsaber or maybe the transporter room.
The transporter. I don't know if I'm down with the transporter necessarily, but
you'd want the holodeck though, wouldn't you?
I'm down with a holodeck. Yeah, arrows everywhere. Yeah, I think my arrow with me.
100 Deanna Troys, and I'm the king.
There you go, brother. You know, it's the powers. I like the. Let's go to the power set. Originally, when the poison gas is released and they have to fight their way all the way to the bridge. The Jedi speed, they should have used a little bit more. I like that they used that. That they I enjoyed the fact when they were the droidekas, when they showed up, and they were like, okay, there's like nothing that we can. There was like nothing that they could do at that point. So they had to run. So in that first scene, you saw. They had weaknesses. They have limitations. They showed you how superpowered they could be, but they had limitations.
They're not gods, right?
They're not gods. Qui-Gon, one of my favorite, I think my favorite scene when I first saw that movie, and it might still be, is when Qui-Gon takes his saber and puts it through those double shielded doors, and he's like melting the freaking door, yo. Yeah, dude.
You know, that's why all this like getting stabbed through the stomach on Disney is infuriating, man. That shit's like molten hot. It's like the surface of a star. And I think it's supposed to be contained by a magnetic field or anything. That's how come they're not burning their fucking face off. But come on, if it can melt steel doors, like blast doors, and fuck you, Disney. That's the whole point of that.
Geez,
which is interesting too, because I always thought that about when Qui-Gon versus Maul on the planet, like in that reactor room or whatever. Why didn't Obi-Wan use force speed there? You know, unless he was scared like the shields would just randomly turn on. And
they kind of forgot about it, didn't they? I mean, he may have. I don't know. Maybe with certain conditions. No idea. It was you're right. It was in the same film, but I don't know. I can't answer that question for you, bro.
Just the emotional stakes, maybe. You know, and I know like the real answer is that the script needed it to happen that way because Obi-Wan had to see Qui-Gon die, just like Luke had to see Obi-Wan die. There had to be a rhyme there, and otherwise, Qui-Gon would have been Anakin's master, and Anakin probably would have been better for that. But you know, we got what we got, and Anakin needed to be taught by Obi-Wan to become Vader as well. You know, there's logic and reason behind all of these strokes. You know, George Lucas is no idiot.
Let's go into probably one of the most either hated or liked character with Jar Binks. You know, when they escape and they get down to Naboo, the first person they run into is Jar Jar, who is a clumsy, kind of foolish, just I don't think very smart. Unintelligent. I think is a good word for him, but pure-hearted, like an honest, loving fool, you know, a pure heart, you know, young dawn soul, if you will.
Well, there you go. In the deck of tarot cards, he is the fool. And all the archetypes that represents. You know, he kind of is out of his element. He has a little bit of an idea of what's going on, but when you know the boss Nass put him in charge of, you know, we're going to make you Bombad General. Fucking Jar Jar was trying to run away the whole time. And the only reason that he scored any hits at all was just dumb luck. You know? Well,
okay, it may have been dumb luck, but the one thing you have to say about Jar Jar Binks is that his his honesty to his heart is what leads him to be brave without trying to be brave. You know, and I think it's a good example of a person who is innocent enough of consequence because the right thing is the right thing to do. You know, like he was cast out from his tribe. He was, you know, the Gungans. He was not allowed to come back to the Gungans. They said, "We're gonna kill you if you come back. You're an idiot. You're a clumsy idiot. We can't stand you no more. You gotta go."
Right.
But he runs into these two strangers. He runs into two strangers and just loves them without any reason to love them, befriends them without any reason to befriend them, and then this leads them to, you know, the universe again. You know, the signs and synchronicities. The universe just came together. Or the Force in the scope of Star Wars,
right?
And gave them a way to travel to Naboo City, you know, to travel to the Queen in defense. And it really all began with Jar Jar Binks, who, like I said, love him or hate him, he's an example of the fool of the tarot and the fool. Like I said, that an innocent, good-hearted person who. You know, I think that because of his honesty, because of his goodness, it makes him brave without even trying to be brave. Because I don't think I don't know if bravery is something you would. Courageousness is not an attribute I think you would give Binks, but him being who he is naturally, there is a natural, you know, there's a natural follow through, a camaraderie, an honest love and compassion that comes from someone who is that innocent.
Yeah. Well, we all know it's not a big secret if you follow George Lucas. He was a really big fan of Joseph Campbell and his amazing book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, right? So we have these two Jedi. They're warrior monks. They're a little bit magical. And they literally encounter
laser swords, baby.
Space wizards with laser swords. But they literally like encounter like a frog by the roadside. And then this frog is kind of annoying, but kind of useful for the plot. You know, we get introduced to his society. We understand later on that they become key to winning back Naboo, to winning back the sovereignty. Which again, it's kind of like the Clone Wars. It's a charade, but it's one that served the Sith. So whether or not if the Trade Federation were allowed to keep control of Naboo, he would have found a way to work that as well. And if what happened, then he's still Chancellor. And then Anakin was discovered, all of that kind of stuff. I also think it's interesting too. Qui-Gon Jinn is known as like a renegade. You know, Obi-Wan's like, you know, if you just followed the Jedi code, you'd be on the council too. I don't understand why you don't. And it's because Qui-Gon Jinn is the kind of Jedi that the Jedi should be, but they're so stuck in their sycophant role with the Senate that they don't even realize that Qui-Gon's right. You know, the Jedi were too stuffy. Dooku saw it after Qui-Gon died. Obviously, he turned to the dark side and all that kind of stuff. But whereas, you know, like Mace Windu and Yoda, they're sitting there taking orders from the council. Qui-Gon's literally like feeling his way through life with the Force. You know, he's don't underestimate the living Force. He's always talking to Obi-Wan about that shit. And then, truth and point, he became the first modern Jedi to survive physical death. He was the first Force ghost. You know,
was he the first Force ghost?
In Disney canon, I mean, yeah, there's novels and shit where even Sith Lords could sometimes appear as Force ghosts, but it just in canon, yes.
Okay. Well, I thought that the Sith they could attach themselves to places or
they could
items.
they can attach themselves to physical objects. Yeah.
Right.
So a real good example of that in the Darth Vader comics, there's an old Sith Lord named what the fuck was that guy's name? It'll come to me, but he basically haunted a mask that when Vader was building his castle, whoever wore that mask took on the persona of the Sith Lord. And the Sith Lord's promising Vader, like, look, when you build this castle thing, you'll be able to go to the other side and get Padme. But he was really doing it so that he could go back into the past and bring himself into the present. So there's good stuff all over the place here, man. I'm kind of bouncing it around.
Yeah, no, we're everywhere. I'm trying to keep us on. I'm trying to keep us on track. Hold on.
Cool,
Buddy. So eventually, we have to touch on Queen Amidala, Natalie Portman, another one of my favorite actresses.
Oh, man.
I love him bitty. I love him tiny and bitty.
Natalie Portman. Yeah.
So it's a very strange society, to encounter. I think a lot of the Phantom Menace was talking about innocence, the purity, innocence, youthful perspective, order, light, compassion, friendship, goodness, all things that are kryptonite to a narcissist or a psychopath, unless they can manipulate you. So we have Palpatine, who's this master malignant narcissist, narcissistic psychopath, who comes from a world of very good-hearted, young, youthful, innocent people. And I think that the leadership that Lucas decided to use, the leadership of this world has a lot to represent in that way. So at this point, you've got Padme Amidala, who is the queen, and she is divine feminine, wise divine feminine, 14-year-old queen who is elected by the people. And then they elect youthful people so that they can keep a positive, changing perspective, compassionate perspective that isn't hindered by age. Because as we grow older, we become jaded, we become set in our ways. And so the innocence of Naboo, and even the innocence to the point to where you had the Gungans who were separated from the land dwellers, from the colonizers, for lack of a better term.
I think their brains are so big.
They think their brains are so big, right? There's a separation, but basically everyone on this planet, most people on this planet, are good. So we've got this regime who's being led by someone who has all these wonderful qualities. Being youthful, being compassionate, open-minded, empathetic, but not the wisdom of war, not a wisdom of conflict. And the pressure that's put on her at this point by the master manipulator is to pressure her into cracking or making a bad decision, because by taking her out of her element, which is what manipulators do. They take you out of your element. In order to create conditions, in order to use you and manipulate you.
I love that. So you hit on several really good points there, man. Number one, that idea of a more feminine society being conquered by a masculine society.
Aggressive masculine.
That's part of that's initially what came to mind when you started talking about Amidala as a leader. Also, we needed to see that this is perhaps where Leia's strength came from. She was raised by Bail Organa of Alderaan, but it's in her bloodline. Does that mean that they're princes and princesses? Luke should be a prince too. God damn it!
Yeah, he is a prince. Yeah, a lot of their strength. Luke. Well, okay, actually, Luke. To be honest with you, Luke to me is more his mother, and Leia is more dad. It
was more Anakin. I could see that too. That's a good point. But real quick before I forget it, absolutely correct. Palpatine pulled her out of her element. She went off planet. She came back, and seriously, when Valorum's sitting there talking, Palpatine's whispering in her ear, "Here's where the Chancellor's power is going to wane. Enter the bureaucrats. They're gonna, and the Senate is on their payroll, by the way. This is why we need a stronger chancellor. And the way he says it, you could push for a vote of no confidence, kind of putting it in her ear, and then using her emotional reality, because she was close to tears when, I didn't come here to have our fucking fate debated in a committee. If this body won't act, we need somebody who will.
We're skipping ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going, man.
That's how it's all
Sorry
covers.
about that.
No, it's a good point. Just we're skipping ahead like half the movie.
Okay.
The decision, to have to escape, to have to leave her world. That's a
Yes.
difficult decision for anybody to have to run in order to
Mhm.
find help. But that is the wise decision from a divine feminine or a divine feminine
Mhm.
leader, in my opinion.
Mhm.
What pressures do you think? Let me ask you this:
Sure.
a young leader like her,
Mhm.
how dependent is someone like that on the advisors around her, who were all older, wiser, more worldly people?
Especially in a society like that, um, she has the ultimate decision making. But yeah, she does have a court of advisors. She has a personal security guard, and then while she's gone, you can see that the Sith Lord was using those advisors to try to lure her back into a trap. Amidala, like she projects strength because she has to, but we see that she really does have a kind and compassionate heart. That's even after Anakin choked her out, she still wanted to believe in his goodness. So
Mhm.
I think that that's closer to her character type. She's showing concern over the people dying because she's not there. She feels like she should be, like their fates should be shared, kind of thing. But the Force has other plans for her, man. It's got to be very difficult. Even if you're older and wiser in your years, she's still also a child at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a lot to
Yep.
deal with.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate that segue because I was looking for a certain image. So let's go into Qui-Gon Jinn. Let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about Qui-Gon Jinn, and then we're going to get into Anakin Skywalker. So Qui-Gon, one of the reasons why I love him is because he is one of the light workers, one of the Jedi who understands that the stagnancy of the old ways, the stagnancy of the
Yes.
things that they had done and gone through. And he was he could see the problems coming before they came.
Mhm.
And I think that showed a lot in his style of teaching and his disagreements with the council. I think that it also shows, again, going back to what Soul Assassin said earlier,
Mhm.
when the Jedi got stagnant. When you have a society that is completely built on light, that justice, rule of law, which is something we all, like I said, strive for, but when you remove the element of chaos, when you remove the shadow aspect of a person, you become stagnant and you become hypocritical.
Yes.
The Jedi were hypocritical. And
Yes,
I
they
think
were.
that Qui-Gon Jinn saw that. And it was a necessary catalyst, in my opinion, had Qui-Gon survived Phantom Menace. Again, in the same way that if Windu had been able to train
Mhm.
Anakin, if
Mhm.
Qui-Gon had been able to train Anakin, I think that a lot of the issues, him becoming Vader, I would have been avoided. Because
Right.
the guidance that Anakin needed, being who he was as a young child, he's a slave. He's got mommy and daddy issues. He's got
Yes, he does.
insecure. He's brave. He's smart. He's got insecurity issues. He's been dealing with loss his entire life. He did not have a
Yes.
man to teach him how to be a man. All he had was Watto, a slave owner,
Yeah. Yeah.
treating his mom like property. Right. So
Yep.
here we are with a young boy who is leaning heavily upon his mother's love, which all young
Yes.
men do, without a
Yes.
father figure to show him how to be a man.
Right.
And literally his father figure at that point was a slave owner who's treating his mom like a piece of meat, like a piece,
Right.
like just a slave. So
Absolutely.
this is the initial makeup of Anakin Skywalker, of who is going to be a future the narcissist. Darth
Yes.
Vader is a narcissist.
Oh yeah.
And that's why kind of one of the roads we're taking with this program, because it shows you the evolution of someone who can be good in their childhood, who even under strenuous conditions that I would call abusive, him being a slave that's being abused, and then not, even though this young man had the support structure to change and be good, and he did, which was the conflict in him, the conflict that Luke exposed and utilized later on in the original trilogy. But even if you have that support structure, all it takes is one devious, backstabbing, lying ass, fake ass, manipulative motherfucker in your life to play enough games with your head, to create enough conditions around you in order to keep alive old abuses, old childhood traumas, and turn you into a narcissist, or turn you into a psychotic person, or a toxic person. I think it's a great aspect to look at Qui-Gon Jinn, who understood it did understand the dogmatic nature of the Jedi, stayed within the realms, stayed within those bounds, but also, I think could have been a good teacher to Anakin and could have helped him to avoid turning into the narcissist that he did.
He was the master that Anakin needed. And if you think about it, they find Anakin, he wins the pod race, and Qui-Gon Jinn frees him. So he's literally taking Anakin from his mother and saying, I'll make sure he's okay. We're gonna train him to be a Jedi. He's gonna be the best thing ever. And then, assuming that sort of parental role, the council's like, no, there's something weird about this kid. We're not going to let you train him. He's like, fine, then I'll just do it. I'll just do it whether you want me to or not. But then what happens? Anakin loses Qui-Gon. Like, one day, this Jedi shows up, takes you from your mom, and then goes and fucking dies. So what's he supposed to do? And Obi-Wan, you get the sense that he didn't want to train Anakin, but he just kind of did it because he promised his dying master that he would. So he doesn't have the same style. He's a little bit more traditional and less of a maverick than Qui-Gon is. We were talking about Jedi hubris, and this is one of the reasons why people make fun of Count Dooku, but his lightsaber style, Form 2, was directly made to combat other lightsabers. And that's why not a lot of Jedi mastered that particular form, because the Sith were supposed to be all gone, and there would have been no reason why a Jedi would need to fight another Jedi. So that's the whole reason why Obi-Wan had to change his lightsaber strategy, because Dooku cut him in the second one. Yeah. And then Qui-Gon. One more thing about Qui-Gon. I actually think that he knew that Padme, the handmaiden, was actually the queen, and I think he was trolling her because of it. He's like, well, the queen's not here right now. She doesn't have to know about it, right? She's like, well, I don't approve.
yeah, right. Like, oh, and give credit to Padme. That showed that she had the Force too.
Yes,
because she too had the ability to deceive, like to hide herself. And I mean, you can call that a dark side power. All right, but I mean, possibly. Possibly a dark side power. I mean, that is Luke and Leia's mom. All right. Yeah. So,
well, let me ask you this, Stephen. Do you think that Qui-Gon and Shmi, do you think they might have hooked up a little bit?
I'm wondering. I don't know, because I think Qui-Gon saw that ass, and
I think
he tried to free her. Let's be real.
It's like, I've got a gold bikini in the ship you should try on.
Look, I mean,
Shmi, you're about to be. He's like, Shmi, you're about to be taken.
That's awful.
He's all floating her in the air, just like, all right. That's how Jedi fuck. Oh, fuck.
That's awful. That's awful. Talking about Anakin's mom like that. That's horrible.
I know.
CJ didn't have a super chat. I will get to that soon. We're going to cover Darth Maul here shortly. I just wanted to go through another aspect when Qui-Gon comes upon Anakin and senses the Force within him, and gets to a point where he's ready to let go of Obi-Wan, who had been his student for how long, and Obi-Wan, the relationship between those two was strong enough, and Qui-Gon's confidence in Obi-Wan.
Yes.
In order to say, I don't think there's kind of like the two ways you can look at it. Was he like, all right, I gotta get rid of you because I got the next best thing here?
Right.
You know, all right. You could look at it like that, but I look at it as like, you are good. You're a man now. You've got this.
Yes.
You know, I have confidence in you. You're gonna be a great Jedi.
Yeah. He's a little headstrong, but there's a little more that he can learn from me. So
a little more he can learn from me, right? You know, like there was a couple more years he could have put into Obi-Wan, but his belief, he followed the Force, like he followed his intuition, he followed his heart. A lot of this first movie has to do with compassion, friendship, innocence, and going with your intuition, going with the flow of the energy of the universe at the moment. And he felt that in Anakin. He said, this boy is important. He didn't know what it was, but he could feel he was some type of nexus. There was something about him within the Force. There was something very special about him that needed guidance. How did you feel about Obi-Wan? Like about that relationship, that dynamic?
Well, it's interesting because you see in the beginning they have like kind of a banter, you know. Qui-Gon very much is in the lead. He's, you know, he might have even say, pay attention to my lead at some point. And Obi-Wan, he's occupying the same station in this first film that Luke did in episode 4, where an older Jedi, more experienced, and a young trainee, essentially. Then later on in the movie, they actually get into a disagreement because, you know, Obi-Wan doesn't see the point in going to Tatooine and risking the princess and, we've picked up another pathetic life form, that kind of shit. He's a little bit cynical. Cynical, and then Qui-Gon has to push back and be like, look, you know, I'm going to do shit this way. That should be enough for you. So go shut up and do Jedi exercises, whatever.
Go do Jedi exercises.
Yeah. Right. Go right on the chalkboard, you know, that kind of.
That I think has to come from the way Qui-Gon trained him, though. He's trained him to think for himself and speak out, like, because that's who Qui-Gon is.
Absolutely. And then later on in the movie, you see like Obi-Wan's all cowed, and he's like, you know, I'm sorry, Master, I shouldn't have questioned you like that. And Qui-Gon's like, no, you know, I'm kind of an asshole, so I foresee you becoming a great Jedi Knight. You're more wise, blah blah blah, than I am. So he does have faith in Obi-Wan, but I think that because Obi-Wan's a little bit more by the book, he's trying to he constantly reminds him, don't forget about the living Force. You know, I'm glad that you know all this other Jedi stuff, but moment to moment, be in touch with the Force, calm yourself, you know. Yeah. And you even saw that when he was fighting Maul. Maul's pacing back and forth like a caged tiger. Qui-Gon meditates. He centers himself. He calms himself. He's the Jedi that the Jedi should be, but because they are not even aware of their own hubris, they fail to perceive that point.
Yes, you know? And that's toxic positivity.
Yes.
That's a toxic positivity trait. Yeah, man. Which is absolutely a thing. It's if you become too engrossed in your own goodness and you're a rule of law and this is the way it should be, and this is you know, you're looking at how things should go in increments, in perfect increments of the universe, and that is putting yourself stuck in a cycle, in a loop of thinking where you can easily become trapped by hubris. You can easily become trapped in a mode of toxic. It is a toxic positivity. It's you know, how certain religious people will get to a point where they get so engrossed in their religion that anyone who prays differently, or you know, on the wrong day, or to the wrong god or goddess, like they're evil. There's something, you know, they can easily slip into that realm of those people are evil, and completely dismissing the doctrine of their faith. I think the Jedi kind of slip into that.
Well, when you believe that you're the author of moral authority as a whole, then you will fail to perceive your own faults because you assume that you're just operating from a place of good. It's kind of like in some of those legacy books or the extended universe books, Mace Windu actually believed that he was the chosen one. And then when Anakin shows up, he's like, this fucking kid, you think he's the chosen one and not me? and it kind of sets up a conflict of a dynamic of conflict between Mace Windu and Anakin. He was against Anakin's training. Anakin never forgot that, and then that whole take a seat, all that shit. No wonder Vader took his hand. He'd been pissed off at this guy his whole life since he got there. So it's trippy stuff. Okay.
So there's a little more I want to go over on Tatooine before they eventually get to Coruscant. But CJ sent a super chat, and I think this is a good time to kind of go from the compassionate, empathetic, innocent, childlike, or balanced characters into the creation of a psychopath.
Yes.
Darth Maul, who was one of my favorite Sith Lords. I love that they brought him into the cartoons. I'm glad there was a continuation. I don't care how it happened, the spider legs, the whole thing. I love it all. So real quick, I just want to say, let's start off with CJ Super Chat. CJ, thank you so much, channel member. Greatly appreciate you. Guys, please smash that like button, share out the link for me if you would. And he says, I mentioned Maul in the comments. Money's on hold so that I can't put the question in the Super Chat. What are your thoughts on Maul based on that? Maul.
Yeah, so early in the chat, I believe he was talking about the Clone Wars.
Okay.
So Steven kind of started off with that. So back in 1999 or whatever, 98, when Maul is first introduced, he's like a badass. It's on a hologram call. Sidious is like, the fucking Federation frogs or whatever they are. They're like, the Jedi are gone. We can't find them. And Sidious is like, that's not a problem for the Sith. And then Maul steps in, and man, he looks like angry, intimidating. He looks evil. And then for him to die the way he did in the movie, you're just kind of like, is that it, man? We got told that Darth Maul is this big fucking badass, and he's cutting too, flush down the toilet kind of thing.
Yes, so. Yes and no. Yes and no. I think the gravity looking back on it, it was one film, so I think that Qui-Gon's much more of an important character than they gave him credit for, a much more stronger character than kind of we were shown, more balanced. Yeah. And I think that the balanced Jedi, that's why I like Mace Windu. All right, Mace Windu, that's my kind of Jedi right there. All right, I will mirror back the Narcissist in a heartbeat. That's my man. I love Darth. I love him.
Psychic Vapad, man.
Oh yeah, fuck. Maul is the best. I mean, Windu's my favorite. But Darth Maul, you say we look at, first off, he's from Dathomir. Yes. And that is the dark side planet, if there ever was one. You got the Dathomir witches, and I love the Force witches. But the training, if anybody out there read the Darth Maul book, the training that this person was put under, since
he was a baby,
since he was a baby, being terrified over and over again. Like, okay, you look at
Darth Sidious raised you, man. Fuck.
Darth Sidious raised you, right? Like, constant pain, constant torture, constant honing, constant control your passion, control your hate. When you look at families, who are toxic, you have an abusive mother, abusive father, either or, who are like severely psychotic, very, very torturous types. The children of those parents, they go one of two ways, really. Either they become narcissistic psychos themselves, or they become like very codependent, broken, caretakers, like givers with no boundaries, because they're constantly searching for the validation that they never got, and they never lived to their true worth because they're devalued their entire life. But that the Darth Maul is a representation of a person, a child who is raised to be a maniac, a psychopathic maniac. And you're right. I mean, to not fully understand that character and have him taken out the way that he was doesn't do justice to him. Go ahead, Cole. Speak on it, brother.
Well, and that's why the Clone Wars as a series was such an important show, because it gave us more Maul, and showed what happens to I guess Sith rejects. You know, he
The Sith
had
rejects,
that
right.
yeah, he had that really good
But
arc with his brother Savage Opress. And man, when Darth Sidious shows up to fight these guys, you realize how outclassed they are by
mhm.
Sidious, and he appears to be just this old man, but no, he is the Dark Lord of the Sith. You don't fuck with that.
Well, that's because
Um,
Sidious is a psychopath who creates narcissists. He
yes.
creates like malignant narcissists, not quite psychopaths. He doesn't want anyone to be as strong as he is, but he
Hmm.
creates like these malignant narcissists, which is what Darth Maul is. He's a
Yes.
psycho, but if you look at him later in, like you brought up, if you bring a look at him later in the cartoons, later in the series, you
Hmm.
can see how broken and fearful he is, right, in recognition of Professor Sam
Sidious
Vaknin.
approaches. Yeah.
Professor Sam Vaknin. One of the biggest things I learned, greatest things I learned from him when I was back in my When a Mirror Narcs stage, was the kind of the triangle, the hub of cluster B personality disorders, right? Narcissists can be nasty. They can be killers. They can, I'm not saying that they can't be. They're very dangerous people to the uninitiated. And if they have any position of power, they absolutely will abuse it and they will destroy you and they will, use their leverage against you. But
Hmm.
they will never attain psychopath level. When you, on the field of the world, if two narcissists come across each other, it depends on the type of narcissist they are, whether or not they see one another. For instance, an overt narcissist and a covert narcissist, the covert will see the overt won't see the covert. The overt will see nothing but constant supply. The covert will say, oh, that's an overt narcissist, doesn't know what I am, so I can play games with him. I can play games with her. Like the sun. Now, if either of these creatures come across a psychopath, they instantly recognize one another. They recognize the psychopath as an apex predator. And the narcissist, no matter what type of narcissist they are, will become a flying monkey, willingly drop to their knee and become a flying monkey to the apex predator, to the psychopath.
Hmm.
And you see this in the way that Sidious creates his narcissists. Those are all his apprentices are narcissists. And so,
Yes.
as dangerous as Maul is, when you get to that point in the cartoon and he looks at, Sidious approaches, you can see he has fear.
Oh yeah.
He has fear because he knows I cannot best that. That's a psychopath. I can't beat him.
Right. Even the two of them.
Even the two of them, right?
He slapped them around like they were children. It was pathetic.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it kind of goes back to the initial, the genesis of this conversation between Sidious and his master, right?
Yes.
Because his master was a powerful psychopath, a more powerful psychopath than he was. He had to outmaneuver. Him in order to Plagueis in order to kill him. He had to strike him when he was weak, like
Yes.
But that didn't take away from his ability to be deadly. It's okay. I'm about done with that. Go ahead.
No, you're cool. That gives me a couple of things to chew on. So it's interesting. Darth Maul in the movie believes that he's Palpatine's apprentice, right? And in the novel, Plagueis is aware of Darth Maul, but he said, "Look, we can train this guy up, but he's never gonna be a full-fledged Sith because that's gonna be you and me, and we're gonna rule the galaxy together, right?" But the nature of the Sith is one of deception. So Palpatine, his big famous move is to sit around and wait and watch to see who's going to be the strongest and the most useful. And that's what he's done with all of his apprentices. So I'm sure that he let Plagueis think whatever he wanted to, and he let Darth Maul more or less prove himself, because Maul's just like chomping at the bit to get at some Jedi. I think it's either a novel or a comic book where he goes and finds a Jedi on purpose to go and kill because he can't stand it. He wants to kill a Jedi. Like that's his whole training, being raised since he was a baby to do this stuff. And he does end up killing the Jedi, but just barely. And Sidious kind of talks to him about his need for patience. He's like, "Look, you're a killer. I get that. You need to kill things. but don't ever go after a Jedi again. If they see a fucking red lightsaber and we get exposed, that's it. 1,000 years for nothing. You know, that kind of thing. And then after Maul is cut in half, it's kind of like, well, that's why you need to watch that Tales of the Jedi, man, because there's some really good dialogue between Sidious and Dooku. Dooku is mad at Sidious for sending Maul against Qui-Gon because Qui-Gon is his apprentice. And Sidious, he goes, you know, you lost an apprentice, so did I. So do you want to be a Sith Lord, or do you want to sit around and cry? That kind of thing. Yeah. So it's really interesting. You see Palpatine is constantly searching for the strongest apprentice, and he's using the people around him because he knows that Anakin, when he grows up, you know, Darth Vader shall be more powerful than either of us, that kind of shit. So he's biding his time. He never meant for Maul or Tyrannus to be his guy. He wanted pre-suit Vader. That's the guy he wanted, and he didn't get it. It's man, Star Wars, you can look at it on so many different levels. So
yeah, absolutely.
We're going to start talking about Vader again if we don't talk more about Maul.
Great. Yeah, just I'm trying to find a good Coruscant clip. The pod race. Like, do we need to go into the pod race? I mean, other than the fact that throughout that, you know, you're being shown again, like the building of the foundation of two kids, you know, between Anakin and Padme coming together. Yeah. You know, the Padme looks like Shmi to a certain extent. I think that at that point you had what's up Snow? Thanks for lurking, bro. Padme kind of reminds him of Mom, all right, and that's the only attachment that he has, which I think is why Anakin attached so much to Padme. Because it was like his mom, you know, God men look for their moms. Again,
Padme was there in the house. She met Shmi. She fucking had a meal with Shmi, you know. So
right, and it was
the way that was his link back to her. Yeah,
his link back to her, absolutely. Also, his only friend was somebody he built, 3PO. Right. Yeah. So again, like you see the lack of father figures in his life until you get Qui-Gon, who dies. And then he goes to Obi-Wan, who is more he's a kid too. So then you just have an older brother dynamic with that. It's not really a father dynamic, it's just an older brother dynamic. And so there's a lot more ability for conflict between those two.
And I think Anakin really perceived that as well. One of the things about to address the pod racing directly, we needed a way to show that Anakin was a talented pilot, that he had a Force connection, even if he didn't understand what that was. I know George Lucas likes fast cars, so that's kind of like the American Graffiti drag race scene in space. But, you know, the technology was improved. He wanted to show off digital shit and all that kind of stuff. But we also kind of needed to see that Tatooine's not just like a boring fucking place that like Luke made it seem. You know, there's shit that goes on. There's a real problem with the Hutts, and the fact that they were using the pod race as a way of gaining advantage over the greedy motherfuckers who wouldn't help them build their ship back. That's another thing too. Qui-Gon was not above using the Force to influence a coin toss. So I think if Obi-Wan had been there, he probably would have had something to say about it. He's like, you know, we're not really supposed to use a Force to influence chance cubes. But Qui-Gon knew that he had to get Anakin off that planet. And he tried for both of them, but Anakin was a real important one. Again, that's an example of Qui-Gon being willing to go into more of a gray area of moral ambiguity if it serves the larger purpose of following the will of the Force. Right? Yeah.
Jillian's in the chat. Just want to say, hail the harem. Hail the harem showing up.
That's right.
Thank you so much. The Dragonstorm harem needs all ladies on deck. Thank you so much. I think Angela's been gone for so long. And where's Jessica? Jessica needs to show up for one or two.
Yeah, she
I think
does.
Angela's. It's a shame, but where's Beth at? But Jillian's here. She's always here for us.
There we
Hail
go.
the harem.
Yep.
Thank
Hail
you so
the
much,
harem.
Lee. Appreciate you being here. So let's when it comes to like the pod racing, I think it also shows again the innocence, the love, the compassion. This movie had a lot of childlike themes
Yes.
in the innocence of the universe, or the innocence of people and their energies, their inner child. There's a very inner child heavy in
Yes.
this, and the and in the background lurking is this manipulator, this person who is taking advantage of, again, the chaos, taking advantage of light and law.
Yeah.
Chaos does to trusting people, because when you have a society, when you have a group, when you have a culture who is nothing but light and love and law, it's very easy for someone outside of that culture to sneak in. There's it's people who get suckered into toxic relationships with manipulators, with abusers, with people. Usually, either they're like me and never knew you were raised by a narcissist, or that you had them around your whole life. You just never knew, and so you were conditioned to accept this as life. Or you've never had any idea that these types of people exist. That like someone could be this cold, this evil, this nasty. Someone could just put their ego, be fake, and in their presentation of who they are to someone, and manipulate you on a level. And those that are really freaking good at it, people are like Palpatine, who is an excellent example of this, just swoops right in. So here we have the psychopath manipulating everyone around him.
Yes.
A master manipulator. I'm here to help you. I'm your savior. The typical trope when you're dealing with a toxic person: push you off the cliff, run down to the bottom of the cliff, and catch you.
There you go.
That's what Palpatine's doing. He's like pushing people off the cliff, and they're running down and catching them. Like, hey, I'm here to save you. I'm here to help you out.
The whole time.
The entire time. So he creates this entire situation, and then, like a good manipulator or maneuver does, a strategic person, because Palpatine is absolutely I think, in my opinion, the best Sith, the best Sith we've ever seen. So Sidious, and it is simply because he takes, again, a rule that I've taken into my own way of life right now, which is find the goods in every situation. He did not think Amidala was going to escape, and look what he did with it. There's Chancellor Valorum, there's the Jedi, there's the Queen, there's little Anakin. Look, he got Anakin. He knows who Anakin is, and all of a sudden now he brought his power of manifestation, his power to manipulate and use magic, the Force. Brought all of what he wanted together, even though it was not his plan. And this is something that happens in manifestation when you are creating the life that you want. Whether it's a dream board or whether you're meditating or however it is that you do it, the universe will bring things together in order to make your will manifest. And here's this clip, this scene right here. This is all the pieces that he needs on the board, and every one of them to be manipulated by him. I mean, is there a better example? Is there a better shot in this than that, as far as an example of him bringing all the pieces of power together?
And because the story, in a lot of ways, began in 1980, the first time we saw the Emperor. There's so many layers to this. You can pack so much into all these decades of understanding. If you read the novelization for the first Star Wars book, it talks about how Palpatine once upon a time was a senator and blah blah blah, and manipulated his way into power. And we see by episode 4, he's so confident of his ability to be the leader that the galaxy needs that he just disbands his Senate, and finally takes away the illusion of democracy or whatever that the people were believing in, because he has a Death Star now. So Palpatine's, one of his best skills is getting other people to do his will without them realizing that that's what he's doing. He talks them into doing shit that he wants them to do. And usually it's by casting doubt or, you know, playing on their insecurities.
Right.
We saw that with Anakin. We saw that with Padme. Yeah, right. We even saw that on Chancellor Valorum when he had that holy shit. This guy's really throwing me under the bus, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He was like, I don't believe what's going on right now. That's how these narcs be, man. They just they gaslight you. A manipulator. Anyone who's a really good manipulator. They get you to a point where you trust them, you rely on them. They're your boy, they're your buddy, they're your friend. And then when the time is right, when they can get the most out of you, or they can't use you anymore, they're going to throw you under the bus in a heartbeat.
Yep.
And then, and if you fight back, and if you just try and stand up, they're going to trash you. I mean, and we don't see too much of this until later on, I think, in the trilogy, in the prequel trilogy. Right. But because in this movie, everyone's just kind of stunned.
Yeah.
And they get stabbed. They're stunned. They're like, I don't. And again, we're talking about this film in the Phantom Menace. It's about innocence. This is about childlike nature, your inner child. Yes. This is about innocence. So when you stab someone who is that innocent or who really does believe that you love them or you cared about them or they're your friend or whatever it is, when you get stabbed that hard, sometimes there's no recovering from it. You collapse. You don't believe in it. You fall apart. And I think that's what happened to people like Valorum.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too, man. I didn't understand what the Fandom Menace as a title meant until after I saw Revenge of the Sith. And I was like, Sidious is the Fandom Menace. You know, he's in the background, a dark specter. And I think most of us knew that Sidious and Palpatine were the same guy, but the way that even in McDermott, when he said George Lucas was going to make more Star Wars and he wanted him to be part of it, he was gravitating more towards I'm this nice kind of chancellor / senator. But who's this other guy? Who's this like Darth Sidious? He sounds kind of interesting. And then Lucas told him, you're going to be playing both, but the audience isn't necessarily supposed to know about it. And even the last shot of the movie, or one of them, he's in the Jedi temple at a Jedi funeral pyre, Dark Lord of the Sith and all, surrounded by Jedi. No one knows. And this is also George Lucas's genius. Mace Windu and Yoda, the Sith are back. So which one was destroyed, the Master or the Apprentice? And then it shows a close up on Palpatine, and he's just kind of like doing that evil little grin that he does. He's such a good bad guy, man. He's probably the most
great.
Yeah, the most evil villain in cinematic history. Everybody wants to say Darth Vader is, but no, it's Darth Sidious.
It's Sidious. No, Vader. Yes. So. Okay, we're going back to Anakin, so we're going to Vader anyway. Yes, you know what I mean? No, it's cool. Vader is a tragedy.
Yes.
Vader, okay, because here you have someone with potential, right? Here's Anakin. He has the most potential. He's got power. He's a little wise. He's wise beyond his years because of him having to rely on himself. He didn't have any male figure, like we said, an abusive male figure in Guado, but he's really had to learn how to be a man on his own and to be protector of his mother at a very young age.
Yes.
He has insecurities, he has issues, but he's tough as fucking nails for a kid that age. He's tough as nails. So here he is being judged by the wise ones of the galaxy. You know what I mean? The Order of Light, the space wizards. The Jedi. Right?
The moral authority. Yeah.
The moral authority, right? The warrior monks, the warrior empaths, who are so full of themselves that they can't see the potential in, or they are fearful of the ability of this young person, which it kind of makes me, Mace, of course, senses it out right away, senses the future out. But I think that one of the things that this shows us in this film, and by the way, this version and every version that you get is most likely the digital Yoda. I knew a guy who worked on the puppeteering team,
on the actual puppet.
the actual puppet for Yoda in the first one.
I wonder how do you think Snowdub feels knowing that the puppet was replaced by digital?
Well, because it was bad. I had to tell him. I was like, "Yo, man," because that was probably the worst part of that movie was the puppet. I'm sorry, and he was like, there was production issues that happened. They really wanted to make that Yoda look younger.
Mm-hmm.
And what they and he even said, what they should have done was they should have just kept the look of Yoda from
Empire.
You know, they should from Empire. They should have kept that look. But that aside, even Yoda, right? 900 years training people for 900 years shows the stagnancy in the wisest, the most powerful of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Not willing to train, not willing to put energy and effort into this boy because he could not, and Anakin, because he couldn't see this, he couldn't see how special, he couldn't see the special nature of this child. He was so locked into his own routine, and that is the issue. Speaking of puppets, Snowdub Music and Entertainment, our fandom puppeteer out there, one of the best guys. Please subscribe to Snowdub Music and Entertainment. Wonderful shows over there, good people, good times. He goes, well, it didn't look as real. It didn't. And he says, I have an action figure of Yoda from this movie where he is still the puppet. Well, that's good. You should. You know, you're a puppeteer. You should.
Right.
Yeah, no, I swear to God, when I was, I talked to him, might have been Discord. It was way back. It was in like the 2000s. I even forget what game I was playing. World of Warcraft, maybe? It was like a Warcraft Discord.
Okay.
And one of my buddies was one of the puppeteers that worked on Yoda, and I had to get. At first I was like, that's really cool. That's really cool. And then I had to give him shit. Give him a little shit. I was like, what's up with Yaddle, yo? Like, what is going on with that?
Yeah. I mean, do they knock boots and make Grogu? Is that what I'm reading?
I don't know. I had to though, because I love that movie. I had a Darth Maul blanket, dude. I was all up in the Fandom Menace.
Oh yeah. Well,
I love that.
That's one thing I did wanted to touch on that I forgot. The stunt choreographer Nick Gillard and Ray Park are very much responsible for the look of the old of how the Jedi fought. You know, because George Lucas was talking about it. The only people that we've seen is like an untrained kind of boy, a half robot guy, and a fucking elderly man. So the way that the Jedi fought was not well represented in the new trilogy. But Ray Park was a martial artist before he was ever casted for. And I believe it was actually his idea for the double-bladed lightsaber. He's like, is there a way that I could get like a staff or something and do that?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's a staff fighter.
Actually, we'll make it a double-sided lightsaber. And then boom. That's how George Lucas creates. He just kind of like he solved the problem by inventing the most badass weapon that we've seen in the last 20 years.
And this is many, many years before Ray Park put his own lightsaber out on the internet.
Exactly.
Yo, listen. John talks. I was on a panel with him, and he was going through different clips, and he actually put Ray Park's dick up on the internet, like up on a live stream, and his face went white, like he didn't catch it in time. I was with me, Nina Infinity. Nina was like, "Put that down, put it down, put it down." He was like, "I've got to private the stream." We went
That's
offline.
So funny. I'm just sitting around. Thinking about him downloading pictures of Ray Park's dick.
Listen, I'm saying, John Talks Star Wars, when he was John Talks Star Wars, put Ray Park's dick out on the internet. That's all I'm going to say. It's not that you probably can't find it no more, but I should have clipped that. I should have clipped that. God. You should see John's face.
Darth Maul's tattooed phallus. Right.
It's Nina Infinity. She remembers. She was there.
There you go.
Shit. Yeah. So, we get to a point where Qui-Gon says he'll train the boy because the council wouldn't train him, and they said no. And it's crazy. I have to ask you this question.
Sure.
If Qui-Gon had survived,
Mhm.
Because at the point he was just like, I can't formally train you, but just watch and observe what I do.
Exactly.
Do you think that he would have formally trained him with or without the consent of the Jedi Order?
I believe that. I think
Mm,
he probably would have left the order. Obi-Wan would have stayed in, and they would have gone to maybe back to Tatooine to go see if they could get Shmi out of bondage. But yeah, his way of looking at the Force and just his beingness as a man naturally would have been what Anakin needed.
mhm.
Even if Shmi was not, if the events of episode 2 played out like how they did and Shmi got married to Klieg Lars and all that kind of stuff, she would have been okay. Anakin wouldn't necessarily have been having nightmares about it because like you were saying before, Anakin and Obi-Wan had a somewhat antagonistic relationship when he was younger, because really there's only like 10 or 15 years difference between the two of them. They're not that much older. There's people who will argue like, well, he appeared to be super old because he lived in the desert and all that kind of stuff when he faced Vader on the Death Star. But whereas the difference between an adult man and a child is a lot different than two adult men. So by the time we get to Revenge of the Sith and episodes of the Clone Wars, are more on an even playing field as far as how they view one another. I think Anakin still called him master out of respect, but especially after Anakin got his own Padawan, there's not as much of a need for him to have a parental figure at that point because he actually has become the parental figure. Qui-Gon would have been much better for him. I don't think he would have gone down the dark side. I think when Anakin started having bad dreams and shit, if he would have talked to Qui-Gon about it, Qui-Gon would have known what to do. It's not like Yoda. You were talking about the hubris of the light side of the Force. Well, Yoda training Jedi for 800 years is kind of representative of that hubris because he's the Grand Master of the Order. He thinks the Sith aren't a big deal. He wants to eliminate. He basically wants the Jedi to be like Vulcans. Just no emotional, mostly logical. They're intuitive with the Force and all that kind of stuff, but no passion, no attachment, no fun kind of thing. And then you got Anakin, who's made of the Force. The Force was his daddy, right? And so by his very nature, he was meant to change it all. And they keep on telling him he's a chosen one, but they don't let him do anything. He's worried about his mother. They say like, hey, forget about her. Anakin gets worried about Padme, and what does Yoda say to him? Train yourself to let go of all that you fear to lose. It's like Anakin can't do that.
Right. What are you doing?
Anakin's too fucking raw. Now, Qui-Gon would have tempered that rawness and turned it into something useful, make it another tool. And Obi-Wan just didn't know how to do that. All Obi-Wan could do is just kind of been like, well, when I was growing up, we did it like this, so you're going to do it like that too. Speaking
of tools, we finally come to the part that you were talking about.
Ray Park's tool.
Ray Park's tool while John talks. We are at the scene that you were trying to get to earlier with the vote of no confidence. The master manipulator, the psychopath, manipulating this young woman. And coming full circle. He completely utilized the left turn that had happened with, that he did not expect, and used it to assume more power.
To his advantage,
To his advantage. Darth Sidious.
That's him, buddy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too. His original plan was to enslave the planet and then have Padme sign a pact or a treaty legitimizing their presence there, which also would have led him to a path where he could use it for power.
Use the Trade Federation for more power, right? To acquire more planets, and then
and it's just so funny how we keep on pointing out how he's using people, and same thing like episode 3. What's he say to the Separatists? Yeah, they're on Mustafar. When my new apprentice Darth Vader gets there, he's gonna take care of you guys.
Yeah, he's
So
gonna take
sit
care
back.
of you, right? Yeah, I
Don't
can't wait
worry.
to cover 3.
Oh man, I love
Yeah,
all that
3
shit.
is.
Yeah,
Woo! Episode 3 is my favorite.
yeah,
It's
definitely
hands
the
down
best
my
out of
favorite.
the prequels. And as a standalone film, yes, but
And
there's
nothing's
so
better
much.
than Empire.
No, and
Nothing's
there's
better
so
than
there's
Empire, but Revenge of the Sith is that's
3 is
that's
3 is back there. Yeah, yeah. I would say it would Empire would be number 1. 3 would probably be
Empire.
number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, Steven, which one of your kids are your favorite? You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
I like them all for different reasons. And are they perfect films? No, but taken as a whole, and if you examine all the different facets of this marvelous piece of work, man, that's why we got so mad at Disney, because they took something perfect and shat all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck Ryan
With
Johnson.
complete complete the fuck Ryan Johnson. You know, we do not say that name here. We do not utter that name here.
Imagining him makes me angry. Seeing him like walking around sets and like cackling at shit and just like justifying his bullshit decisions.
Ryan Johnson is a narcissist. And he will never get more negative fuel. He will never get the high that he once got. That's the only thing that I can say about the last that walking turd, The Last Jedi. That awful desecration. I don't know.
I really think Admiral Holdo was his write-in character. Like he wrote himself into.
There was like one good scene in The Last Jedi. There was, and they even fucked that up. That was the throne scene. That was like the only good scene in that movie, and I thought it was going to pick up, and even they edited the shit out of that wrong. You know what I mean? Like when Rey can edit weapons out of people's hands, I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm done. God, dude. We're not talking about Disney Star Wars.
No. Well, he turned in his first draft, and that's how it was, and then he didn't even realize shit was wrong with it until like way after it came out.
God.
Fuck him. God. And the pony he wrote in on.
My God.
Back to real Star Wars.
Back to real Star Wars. Right. But it was skipping ahead. So again, she makes another impulsive move that he did not expect, which was going back to Naboo to go fight. Nothing more she could do here. And she kind of realized it. Like Padme understood when she saw him walk in and say, I just got elected chancellor. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like she was like, this motherfucker. She knew. She's like, this bitch. I can find no justice here. There's going to be no justice here. She realized she was manipulated. She had to take things into her own hands, which is what a real talk motherfucker does. That's, you know what I mean? That's what real talk does. Okay, I tried to do it this way. I tried to do it the right way. I tried to go down this route. You know, in the same way that Qui-Gon, same thing. Qui-Gon went to go get Anakin brought to the Jedi Order. Now you can't train him. Now we ain't going to train him. All right, well, just pay attention to me, kid, because I got you.
Exactly.
You know, like at Coruscant is the center of corruption. It is the center of corruption. There's no justice. You're not going to find justice there. You're not going to find, you know, any kind of truth other than what the status quo is, a corrupt government.
Yes.
And so she goes back like real talk does to go take her planet back, to go fight for her people. Hooks up with the with the natives, hooks up with the Gungans.
Yeah.
And again, you got, you're shown again through Jar Jar, who, he might be a stooge, he might be a clumsy fool, but he's so dedicated to being a good person, to being authentic to himself, that he creates that connection with the Gungans and with the Naboo. And it's, again, another central character. Guys, never discount the courageousness, the natural courageousness in an authentic person, no matter how bright you may think they are, in doing what's right. And how doing what's right will bring like minds together. It will bring like energies together. I think it's an important aspect of this film. Speaking from the inner child, speaking from that place of compassion and goodness and authenticity and love. So we get to that point. And is there anything about any of that you want to touch on before we go to the fight?
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting when Padme decides she's going to go back. as Senator Palpatine. Palpatine's like, no, wait, stop. No, you can't go back. You should be here and blah, blah, blah. And then he's kind of putting on the politician face. But then like later on when he's talking to Maul, he's like, this move is very aggressive and unexpected.
Yeah, right.
Be aware,
Right.
Lord Maul, that kind of thing. Because then again, you see Padme's being more willing to be aggressive, kind of like how Leia took charge of her own
Right. She's evolving. Her character
rescue.
evolved.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, her character evolved. Yeah.
You know, and that's also what's annoying about the Disney iteration is that they're trying to say like, oh, you know, we're very feminist and we're very blah blah blah.
Yeah, but
in
they
a
make
very
their women
annoying way.
annoying pushovers who are just hate men. That's their main power. They hate men.
You know, but George Lucas knew how to make strong women. You know, Leia was a strong woman. Her mother was a strong woman.
Classic Hollywood did.
Yeah,
they all did.
Absolutely.
So a lot of women, a lot of good women leads you can point out, like action heroes or leadership roles, you know, from the past. But progressives don't know how to do that shit.
No, because they're narcissists too, and they want to claim the origin of every virtue that they're trying to signal. Man, they're it's this way because I made it that way. No,
right. And if you don't like this, I'm going to gaslight you and then label you and smear campaign.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to start hate channels dedicated to you.
Yeah, narcissist would. That's what the fuck it is. But yeah, you're right. Like this again. Here we are showing the example of something Soul Assassin said earlier. You know, the Sith evolved. They took advantage of the chaos. When you have an environment that is peace and love and light, and you know, it becomes stagnant. You introduced a chaotic element. You introduced this fucking psychopaths and these narcissists into this world, the Sith. You introduced them and their energies, their influence and maneuvering, and characters started to change. And Padme is an example of that. She became she grew, she evolved.
Yeah, and it's good to see, at least logically, that Leia's mother was a fighter. Leia became a rebel. You know. But then that thing you were saying about Anakin and Padme compared to their children, when Vader found out that Luke was his son, it made me wonder if he could, especially like in Return of the Jedi, when he goes and confronts his father, could he see Padme? Could he sense her beingness within Luke? Because it's really the last thing Padme says before she dies. There's good in him, and that's. The love that Luke shows Vader is Padme's love for Anakin, and he reminded Vader of that.
Yes, but at that point, I mean, all right, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but fuck it.
Oh, we are. Yeah.
But at that point, Vader's a full-on malignant narcissist at that point.
Yes,
he's broken. He's destroyed. He hates himself. He hates his true self. Yes. One of the scenes I have to say in the Obi-Wan series. One of the scenes that I felt actually was powerful was the Vader Obi-Wan fight when Obi-Wan cut off half his mask. Mm-hmm. You know, and you saw Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker, which was pretty cool. I don't care, whatever. I thought it was cool. And he says to him, he goes like, you know, what did he say to him? Is that you think like this is who I am. You know, he's basically saying like
you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker.
Hey, Craig. So here's the false right. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. The false self in that aspect, the narcissistic shell, who was Darth Vader, was cut off, and then there's the true self, Anakin. There's the broken, hateful person underneath. You know, at the center of the narcissist. Yeah, and that is who he is, right? So even if he encounters Luke at that point. Yes, there's conflict. There's always conflict. He's a narcissist. There's conflict inside him constantly. He thrives on that hate. The Sith thrive on that. And so when he sees his son, yeah, there definitely is a moment of seeing his dead wife. There is this moment of seeing his child. There is this moment of seeing the legacy. Then it becomes the legacy that never was. Then it becomes the legacy that he hates because he hates himself. Then it becomes he hates Luke because he hates himself. Then it becomes he hates Padme for not going with him because she didn't listen to him. And it all becomes grandiosity, and it all becomes hatred. It all becomes self-loathing, and it all that's what it's does. So there is the conflict within him that Luke felt was that struggle within him. It was a struggle for his authentic self, which he eventually found at the end, before, when he fulfilled the prophecy. But he could not live what he had done, who he had been. Like you can't recover from that, and that's why Vader died. That's why Anakin died. It wasn't just the Force. If it wasn't the Force lightning, he would have just died, because you can't at that point embrace authenticity after being that evil piece of shit for how many decades. A completely murderous, child-killing, evil, hunting, destructive, nasty, bullshitting yourself, full of grandiosity and fucking Delulu land. You can't. There's no way there was no recovery. There was no recovery for Anakin Skywalker. There was a redemption. Right. Kill the person that trained him to be who he was, or manipulated him and gaslit him and tortured him and hurt him and did all the shit that's all he could do. And then hand the baton over to his son, to the next generation. And then again, still it becomes up to Luke, which is why I really am mad at Disney for not continuing the story, because then it becomes Luke healing generational trauma. Healing that trauma to make turning around. That's the true hero's journey. The episode 7, 8, 9 that we didn't get. That we had, as well as we're going to get in the original expanded universe, the legacy canon. That is that would have been the true 7, 8, 9. That's why the fucking Ryan Johnson. God, I could shit in his mouth and sew it shut. Because we didn't get that. What we got from the progressives in Hollywood, what we got from those assholes was, everything keeps being hateful and everything becomes defeated over and over again. And he's an angry white Trump supporter. And
they're just jacking themselves off.
Don't trust old white men. What? No, it's like, okay. And they had no training, but she's perfect because we're all perfect. We know better. Like you take this story, like, to me, I've always loved Star Wars. I've always loved this entire both trilogies. The unsaid completion, the undone completion, of this would have been the healing of generational trauma and pushing that legacy forward. Because the way that 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 are set up is that, why we should have gotten Mara Jade. We should have got like the Solo twins. We should have got these characters that, sure, there was still conflict in the universe and this and that, but the progression forward of Han Solo and Leia and Luke and like redeeming Mara, all of this, that is a story that is so much more impactful and so much more meaningful and it's a blazing point of light in the darkness of the world. That's why the redemption of Anakin means so much. That's why it means so much to people. Because there was no taking back what he did, but in the end, there was an authentic person in there. There's a lot of people out there that struggle with traumas, the deep traumas from their childhood, that were brazen abusive homes, or they were abandoned, or they dealt with, they were trafficked. There's a whole lot of people out there, a whole lot, who have dealt with these things throughout their life and have the strength to push forward, have the strength to keep going. And there's some out there who need tales like this in order to be inspired for that next push. The redemption of Anakin Skywalker, killing Palpatine, is, look, you can't undo what he did, but there was still an authentic person in there.
Well, there's always a choice.
And he did it for love. There's always a choice. You always have the choice to be made. And he handed off the legacy to Luke out of love to protect his kid. The one thing he fucking did right in the last half of his life was protect his kid. That's a beautiful story.
Absolutely.
When your sister, tell your sister you were right about me. And that's all he has. That's all he had to give, because he's fucking Anakin Skywalker. He's a fucking piece of shit. He's an abuser and a killer and a murderer, and he betrayed everything that he knew was right. He was, but he's also a fucking victim, man, because he was manipulated and used and abused and gaslit and trained, and all of his triggers played on in order to get him to where he was, to become Darth Vader and to embrace that darkness, and it didn't have to be that way. So while I'm saying that, it's very important that there be people out there who lead by example, be good. That we need that light. We need people. We need the rule of law. We need justice. We need this. We need those things. We need light workers out there. It's also important to keep. It's important them shadow workers. It's important to keep them Sith in check. The liars and the manipulators. You can grow from that, but if they have total control, you can turn the best people. You can turn people with the best potential into complete pieces of shit.
Absolutely. You know, it's
such
interesting.
An important story. Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Well, it's interesting. You said that Anakin would have died anyway, and I believe that too. So in the novelization, they talk about how when he crawled out of the pit in Mustafar, the change had been burned into him. You know, he was Vader, and it was clinging on to that hatred and the need for revenge and all that kind of stuff that kept him alive at all. Like, he probably would have died at Mustafar if he didn't cling on to that hate. So when he saved Luke and turned back to the light side, the dark side couldn't sustain him anymore. He would have naturally died of his injuries.
He would have naturally died, right? Yes. Okay. Oh man, beautiful, bro. And that's the thing, right? So when you go through abuses as a kid, when you go through like all these fucking traumas when you're growing up, that animal aspect of you, that dark side energy is what keeps you alive. People get to a point where they decide that is all who they are, and that's where narcissists are born.
Yes,
that's that chance, that decision. It's like I have to protect myself at all costs. I have to see things the way that I do. I have to exist in this way in order to be a functional person. It has to be this way because it can't be any other way. Yep. It can't be any other way. They're Vader at Mustafar with a cut off broken dick. Yeah, that's what it is. You know, it's now his choices led him to that point, and everyone's choices lead them to that point. But there is always a point in which you can decide not to go down that road. And even if you do, there's still a lot of work you have to do on yourself. There's still a lot of inner work, a lot of healing, a lot of introspection, a lot of things that you have to do. I've been fucking doing it for goddamn 30 fucking years. Like it takes a lot, you know? It's well, but like you said, bro, when you get to that certain point, Vader got to that point, there's no going back. I mean, you know, like when I was younger, I would have loved to have seen Vader survive. You know, I love the fan theories, or I even wrote a couple myself, him in the fucking gray outfit. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great idea, but no, there's no coming back from that. You're right. His hate kept him alive. For a person, and this is why people with traumatic disorders, this is why they never come back. That's why I don't believe in them self-aware narcs. They're not coming back. All right, that's self-aware. Rat Wolf and those motherfuckers, they're not coming back. They're still evil. They're still Delululand. They still hate themselves. They're faking it. And you can't fake it till you make it, because there's no making at that point. You've made those decisions throughout your life. You've spent decades being a manipulator. You've spent decades being a liar. You've spent decades destroying people. And this is how you are. For you to change, there's no change. You're going to die. There's no you. There's no authentic you left.
Well, that's the thing. Luke loved Vader. That's his dad. He had a very personal reason.
Luke wasn't the hero.
Right. But if Anakin had survived, the galaxy's still pissed off at him. He would have had to face his crimes, and they would have probably killed him anyway.
They would have killed him anyway. No, he would have died. Yeah. No, he wouldn't have. Listen, no, he would have died. No, all right, no. If the Force lightning doesn't affect his suit the way that it did, right? He actually makes it off the Death Star. He's dead within a week.
Yeah, well, he let go of his hate. The hate was the only thing sustaining him.
Only thing keeping him going. All right, it's like that false self is the only thing keeping him going. What's left? A broken, battered, defeated, hateful, angry, self-loathing body who is now trying to find his positive fifis again. He's dead. He's going to die. He's going to die of a broken heart. He would die if they broke. Leia would definitely. Leia would have definitely killed him. That's a mean bitch. That's a.
You know it.
It took a Han Solo to tame that. He would have died of a broken heart. Like, he would have. I think the best case scenario there is he goes to Naboo and fucking lays down next to Padme's grave and just fucking fades.
Just lets go.
Dies.
Yeah.
Just lets go. Yeah, you can't come back from being that evil. Not in my opinion. You can't do that.
I don't think so either.
That's why I don't believe in these fucking self-aware narcs. And fuck that. Do you know what I believe a self-aware narc is actually healed or healing themselves when they go off. You know what I mean? When they off. That's what I believe in. I've dealt with too many of them. I've dealt with too many with these evil people. I've had them smear campaign me and come after me and attack me and go to and dig into my past and all that shit. Now they're fuck these. They're evil. You get to a point where you're just evil.
Yeah, it's very rare for that personality type to, number one, have the facility to like self-question. They believe they're correct, and even if they don't believe they're correct, they're going to be correct anyway.
Listen,
it's everybody else, right?
The only one I like is Sam Vaknin. That's why the only one I like is Sam Vaknin. You listen to when he gets interviewed. Listen to what Vaknin says. There's somebody asked Vaknin, "Do you have friends?" And he was like, "I don't think I'm capable to perform the function that you like label as friendship. I don't have that ability." Like he knows, he isolates. And at the same time, they ask him about spiritual advice. He's going to tell you God does not exist and Trump is a narcissist. You know what I mean? Like he's a narcissist. He's a narcissist. You know what I mean? Like that's your best Sam Vaknin, best case scenario. And I like Sam. You know, like I do. I like for what he's done for the community in this. It's just for what he has done for the community. Because he is trying to educate. His narcissism is pointed in the direction of self-understanding and exploration. And that has helped so many people.
It's kind of like that old adage, never meet your heroes, right? So Mark Hamill as a person, he knows his Star Wars really well. He loves the fans. He loves Luke Skywalker. He understands that character. When he was promoting for The Last Jedi, the Voldemort of Star Wars films, the one we dare not name. He was going around telling people that he disagreed with Ryan on every choice he made for Luke.
Yeah,
you know, and you could see how beaten up and upset he was about that.
Yeah, those are your people, Mark. Those are your progressive peoples.
But again, and then that's what's interesting to me, to draw the parallel with Vaknin, is as much love as he has for Star Wars, his personality type is along the same lines of those who destroyed Star Wars.
Right? Yeah. No, but Mark Hamill himself is a Sith. And that's what's really fucked up. Is like Mark Hamill's one of my, like I love Mark Hamill for playing Luke. I liked him as the trickster. I liked him as the Joker. You know, like I one of my childhood heroes. You know what I mean? Like I could do without the priest role. But you know what I mean? Like you get to a point where, again, like the Jedi, right? You get to a point where you're so inundated with your own belief systems that you gaslight yourself into believing you are the moral authority. And that's where Hollywood liberals turned progressive. That's what they became.
Yep.
They are the moral authority. No, you're not. You're evil. Everything you're saying is evil. Everything you're pushing is evil. It's not equality. It's not freaking,
It's that whole we know what's good for you.
We know what's better for you. Yeah. Can someone please pass me the champagne? And yes, I'm going to take that Ferrari. And fuck you. They're awful. Let's just ignore that so-and-so is blowing someone for that role and getting abused. And let's just ignore the pedo ring that's happening over here. And when are you going to P. Diddy's party? And next trip to Epstein's Island is when? I want to get my calendar checked off. You know what I mean? But they're going to tell us how to vote and how to live. And they're going to create films. You know what I mean?
Looks like they're floating out this idea of Canto Bite, like it's supposed to be our side, but it's actually their side.
They are Canto Bite, right? They are Canto Bite. You know what I mean? Like, why are you kidding me right now? I can't. Oh, I can't with Mark Hamill. Like, I loved Mark Hamill, but I will. I
got to separate the art and the artist. I will watch him play Luke all day, but I can't listen to any of his opinions.
I watched the Avengers. I was on the plane coming back from Salt Lake today, and I'm watching Infinity War on the way, right? And I'm looking at Ruffalo, and I'm like, oh, fuck, Jesus, no.
Yeah.
All I can hear is his inane shit going through my head. And I'm just like, I can't. Right. God damn it. I love the Hulk. The Hulk's my favorite character in Marvel.
Yeah.
But, like, Ruffalo, please get off Twitter. Get off social media. Yeah. Stop talking your nonsense.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking at this cast of people that, like, that display these certain characteristics in these Marvel films that are just, that are compassionate, that are like really good characters. Like they did a really good job. Marvel Cinematic Universe proper up until Phase Femme, whatever the hell it was. Yeah, up until that point, right? But then, at the same point, these actors are out there on the social media and telling us that we're awful people because we don't vote their way, or we don't hate ourselves for being a certain color or being a certain religion.
Right.
Get out of here, Mark Hamill's a Sith in real life.
I even had to do that with the TNG cast. Like, I love that show. It formed very core components of my personality that are still with me. But if I listen to any of those guys give an interview, it makes me want to shake them.
Listen, I'm not trying to talk about this all too much, y'all, but one of the sexiest things I ever saw was going to my woman's house, and she had not one but two MAGA hats.
Oh, there you go.
I was like, that's sexy as fuck.
Both you guys, that's all you guys wore.
Just having sex in MAGA hats. Yeah.
That's funny as hell, Steven.
Oh, man. Oh, God. All right. But,
all right. So what are we looking at here? Yeah.
We're looking at the end scene credit. The final scene, which is the good guys win, but do they? Right? And there's a psychopath. There's a manipulative psychopath right there, among the heroes. Because that's what these types do. This is what these manipulators do. They are the hero. They're a hero. He's a part of the heroes cluster, the heroes tribe. He helped them. And he was the manipulator and causing all of this defeat and destruction the entire time. But when the laurels are being passed out, there he is right there.
Yeah.
That's
it's a trip, man.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You had a similar feeling at the end of the second one too, because they think that they've won, but they've really just stuck the dick further up their ass.
Right.
And then can I say this? Hail John Williams. That man.
Yes.
The music that he makes tells the story too. And aside from the Imperial March, I think Duel of the Fates is probably his most recognizable piece. I mean, the main theme, all notwithstanding.
Dude, I'm watching Revenge of the Sith after this. That's happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was telling you, like part of the genesis of the stream. I mean, Steven and I have been threatening to do this for a long time, but I was talking to somebody who hadn't really watched Star Wars. I mean, they saw like the first one in the movie theater because fucking everybody did. But when I sat down and explained the whole thing, it was almost like telling a campfire story. I had her riveted. She's just like, "Oh my God, we should watch that." And I was like, "Now you're talking, babe. All right.
Listen.
Digging this.
I'm just going to say this. My girl likes Star Wars too.
There you go.
I'm not even going to say if she cosplays as Rey. I'm not going to say if that happened.
Right.
I'm not going to say if that happened. And I'm not going to say if I was turned on by it or not. And that's the only time anything Disney Star Wars has ever got me off. But
oh man,
no, I don't know. It is a shame. I guess we're pretty much done with that. It is a shame when you look at the potential of what could have been. I guess we're going to talk about Disney Star Wars at the end. What could have been, because, like I said, Finn that should have been the next Jedi.
Yeah.
Great character, great, like John Boyega really could have nailed that, I think.
If they gave him something decent to work with, absolutely.
If they give him something decent to work with, I think.
They gave him Rose Tico.
Listen, they gave him Rose Tico for God's sake. Oh, fuck Ryan Johnson. Listen, Ray could have been a great character. Ray should have been Jaina Solo, and oh God, what was his name? What is his name? The bad guy. I don't even know
Kylo Ren.
Anymore. Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
My son liked Kylo Ren, and I tried to bond with him, like in The Force Awakens. Like I tried to like that movie over it, but the more I watched it, the more I hated it.
Oh yeah.
But Kylo Ren again. That should have been Jason Solo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why didn't we get Darth Cadus?
There you go.
But
it's like the first time you saw that movie, you were just so like happy to be seeing Star Wars, and you didn't realize all the shit that was wrong with it until that second movie came out. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with waiting until the end to show Luke, but the next movie should have been Luke training Rey, and he shouldn't have been. I hear this thing where J.J. Abrams, he initially wanted Rey to find Luke, and Luke is like levitating boulders and mountains and shit. So it's like this, making the stuff he did on Dagobah look like child's play now, because he's like Master Luke, Grandmaster Luke.
Grandmaster Luke should have been a part of the Jedi freaking order.
Absolutely.
Leia should have gone on the Ark. Leia was she got force trained for a little while, but then she took that power to the Senate. You know, like she should have been flying through fucking space. What the hell was the Super Leia flying through space?
No, that was the. I mean, in a movie full of terrible scenes, that has to be the worst.
Let's completely wipe our ass with one of the most awesome female characters of the 80s, right? Let's completely wipe our ass with like a hot heroine who was badass. Leia's not the chick you pick up at the bar. All right, she picks you up if she's in the mood. You know what I mean? Like, that's Leia.
Yeah,
like, she's badass, dude.
Well, it's weird because we hear that George Lucas had treatments for 7, 8, 9 that he was told were going to be used at the time of the sale, but really they just kind of went like, we're not even going to buy this. We're going to lock it up in
nobody ever sees this. We're going to take all the build up for Rebels that was going to go into the sequel trilogy, and we're just going to throw that out the window. Forget the wills, forget that existed.
So he always says like the next trilogy would have been about Leia more or less being the new chosen one, and Luke was powerful and all that shit, but Leia was actually more powerful. And when she learned the mastery of the Force, then she basically would have outclassed Luke anyway.
And they would have gotten a sequel trilogy with a woman lead, well written, well done, well acted, crafted, that would have been accepted by everybody. You know what I mean?
And now, now Carrie Fisher's dead, and they can't do anything to fix what. You know, if it was me, the next movie, it would just be like Luke waking up, going like, "Oh shit," and then realizing that
it was all a dream,
like a bad Force dream. Like, if this goes down this way, if I do this to this, that's
wearing a MAGA hat,
wearing the MAGA hat, nothing else, just a lightsaber,
lightsaber and a MAGA hat.
Mara Jade sitting across, wearing the other MAGA hat. She's like, "You want a sword fight?"
Oh Jesus, dude! Listen,
we're evil.
Oh man, it's a shame. The moment they made fucking Han a deadbeat dad, I was done. Fuck out of here, man! Are you kidding me right now? That's not Han's progression.
They took all the character progressions and threw it all away.
Reversed them, they reversed them to make him as bad as they could possibly make him. Okay, woman is awesome. And that's not awesome.
I bypassed the converter.
Oh yeah. I can't.
So terrible.
It is so bad. It's not even like a good bad.
No, and they took Anakin's redemption away from him and gave it to Rey.
And she doesn't need training at all. She doesn't need training at all.
No, she could reach to the Force and pull a lightsaber out of Kylo Ren's ass.
She's actually the daughter of a failed clone.
Exactly. That explains it all.
I can't with Disney Star Wars. It's so bad.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense. All right, we're done. Jesus, we had to. I'm sorry, guys. We really did not want to talk about Disney Star Wars. But you see how often we fought it? Because it is horrible. It's if you guys are interested in real Star Wars, check out the original trilogy. Most especially, just look at the standalone film, which could have been a standalone film, Star Wars, what you call A New Hope. Just look at Star Wars. That's a great standalone film in and of itself. And if you want to see the greatest Star Wars ever, The Empire Strikes Back. That is hands down the best.
The best.
Yeah, it's the best. But I also suggest the Clone Wars. I'd also suggest, some of Rebels.
Some of Rebels is very good. Actually, the thing that the thing that they ripped off for Kenobi originally happened in Clone Wars, and it was Ahsoka that cut open mask and saw Anakin.
Yeah, yep.
And it's the same thing.
Again,
Anakin wouldn't turn for anybody else except for Luke.
Listen, Ahsoka Tano, it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite characters. I don't care. I will look at the Ahsoka series and check it out. You know, like when they have the next. Season.
I didn't think the first season was as terrible as everybody thought it was.
No, it wasn't that bad.
It's not fucking perfect, but
no,
I didn't think it was terrible.
But
I actually want to see more Force Ghost Anakin. That's the last shot we got. Yeah.
Yo, that scene though. That episode with Clone Wars Anakin and Ahsoka was the shit. I don't care. That was the shit. Give us more of that, you know. But the problem is always going to be leading up to the sequel trilogy. Fuck, I don't give a shit at this point. Yeah. Fix it any way possible. Use the world between worlds. Please fix this shit. And if they did that with people that cared, then maybe we'd get something better. Something, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
You know, everything can't be Grogu.
No, you should go to Star Wars Theory channel. He did an interview. Once upon a time, Kenobi was supposed to be a movie, so he did an interview with that original writer.
Oh yeah,
really good interview. Yeah, check it out. And then the writer talks about how they basically like took the script away from him, decided it was going to be a show, and then disinvolved him, and then inserted all that extra shit into it.
Listen, I mean, Kenobi wasn't horrible. I didn't think Kenobi was horrible. I thought there was some good fucking scenes in Kenobi.
I thought it was decent when it wasn't about the Reva show, and I really think that they should have done something with Luke instead of with Leia. But
please, at this point, the only thing that could save Disney Star Wars, the only thing that they could do that would be anything good, is first off, don't let anybody from the original story group anything. Don't let Kathleen Kennedy touch anything at all. Pablo, any of them. Get some people in there who care about Star Wars and give us Revan.
Yes, Keanu needs to be Revan.
Give us Keanu Reeves, right? Give us Revan. Give us that. Give us some stories from the old Republic. You know, and I think that might revitalize if they need to go to a whole new timeline. It needs to go to a whole.
Well, they should make the Bane trilogy into a movie. There's 3 movies right there ready to go.
There you go, right there.
His apprentice was a female. And then when she takes on the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith, her apprentice is a female as well. So you'd think Disney would be all about that shit. But
before they get too old, and while we have CGI or de-aging at the level that we do, give us another Clone Wars. Give us another Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. Give us Ahsoka, give us Obi-Wan, give us Anakin, Hayden. Give us something, you know what I mean? Give us that. Like that I think that would work out.
Make sure Favreau writes it.
Make sure Favreau writes it. Yeah, get some Star Wars people in there that love Star Wars.
Right.
I mean, and yeah, man, that's other than that, dude, it's just difficult to look forward to. That's why we're covering these.
Yes. Yes.
And so, yeah, our next episode is going to be the next part's going to be part 2. It's going to be the Clone Wars, which is what about was it 10 years later? 10 years? No, it's not 10. How many years later is it? After the
No, it was like it was like
6, 7?
2 or 3. I want to say it came out in 2001.
Well, he's 16.
Maybe.
No, well, I'm saying like Anakin, Hayden. So Hayden comes in. Anakin's like what, 16? About 16 in that one.
I thought he was supposed to be 19, but
is he?
Maybe
I don't know. But
he's old enough to do sexy things with Padme. That's about it.
He's old enough to hit on Padme in a very awkward way, in a very awkward, creepy way. Oh, Narcissist is creepy up and down, bro.
Everything here is soft, smooth, my lady.
Padme is so broken. She's just like, oh my god, this evil guy. I know he's dark.
You seriously killed a whole village of people? That's so fucking hot.
It's so hot. I'm gonna fucking bang you. Narcissistic abuse, anyone?
You brought your mother's corpse home. That's so hot. We're gonna totally have babies with you, Anakin. That's gonna be a fun show, dude.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one, bro.
You know, like
he did.
you know when you're
you're
sitting there, when you're sitting there thinking about how you're gonna hit on somebody, and it's like so cool in your head, you're like, yeah, Sand. Fuck.
Yeah. It's
He's like, shit.
It's like,
Sand, I'm a fucking idiot. What the fuck was that?
And you're right. You're right. We were never real supposed to really like Anakin. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Hayden did a great fucking job. I thought he did. Because he's creepy. He's supposed to be creepy. He's supposed, he's a hoovering hobgoblin. He really is a hoovering hobgoblin.
Training, yeah.
So, we're gonna have. Oh God, we're gonna have so much fun with that one. This next one.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward.
I really like this. We've been talking about doing this for months. And like I said,
all it took was for both of us to get laid in the same span of time. Like,
that's what had to happen. You know, somehow
together.
Somehow like it involved nudity over several states. You know, we may or may not have been naked at the same exact time.
Earlier, he's like, I'm standing here naked talking to you, Steve. I told my girl. Listen, I told my girl. I said, Alex is my spiritually gay brother. Like we're spiritually gay for each other, and she was down with it. So she's okay with that explanation. I said, it's not 3D gay. Understand? Right. We're trans fat, but it's not.
Right. So let me tell you how the taint chakra actually works.
He knows how to use the taint chakra. Look, we'll talk about that offline. I'm out of here, bro.
Okay.
We ain't going there. I'm not doing that. I love you guys. Coyle, is there anything you want to promote before we head out?
Well, I'm still trying to decide if I need to just start building this channel and say fuck it, or I tried to write to your guy and he only accepts emails from other blue check marks, which is not going to happen anytime soon. So
DJ Odyssey, tell DJ.
Okay.
Okay. Because dude, I'm telling you, Pickles will help you. If you can, he absolutely will.
Yeah, if I can get into my Google account, then everything's fine. But getting into it the way that the phone company wants me to do it is not fine. So we'll get it figured out one way or the other.
Listen, I said taint chakra got played with. That's all I said. That's all. I will tell you. I will go to Trans Fat and explain that. I'm not doing it
there
here.
You go. Okay. Yeah, you don't got to give Parrot Head any more ammo, dude.
No, God, no. Nothing goes up my ass. I'm just saying that I was massaged in a way that just I will see you guys this weekend for Rogue Entertainment on Saturday. You all have a wonderful Christmas. Yes. Have a Merry Christmas. I don't really have anything else to say other than thank you guys for being here so much. And please remember to smash that like button. Leave a comment. Let us know after the stream if you enjoyed this. And hail the chat. We will schedule the next show for probably a week from now. So guys, be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for being here and enjoying what we had to say and what we didn't say. And I don't have an outro. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to play the intro, outro. All right. Media assets. I am author Stephen Walton, the Fandom Menace historian. Your historian born in the chats of the High Council with my brothers and sisters fighting for our modern mythologies. Please remember to wash your hands, wash your ass. Be good to each other, yet suffer no fools. And of course, your daily reminder to clean your peen, gentlemen. Make sure to clean that peen. Ladies enjoy a clean peen. Narcissists don't clean their peen. It is nasty, full of butt butter and mud butt, fruit flies. You don't know what you're getting with it. You don't know what you're getting with narcissist dick. You don't know where it's been. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know how it's been used. I guarantee it ain't manscaping it. And if they are, they ain't using aqua velva. I don't know if you should put aqua velva on your dick, but I'm just saying, clean your peen. Be good to each other. Suffer no